Hey, how's it going? Hey, happy Saturday. How's everyone doing? Happy Saturday. Hope everyone's doing okay. Things look a little bit different, so I'm changing a couple things up. I got to try a couple things. So real quick before we get started, there were a couple follows and some bits ahead of time. So hey, thank you so much. I'll start from the bits. Dude, Jordan, thank you so much for the 100 bits. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Also, it looks like there were some follows right before I started, during when I started. So Vic Ulisse, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. Koala Blast, thanks for follow, appreciate it. VP, thanks for follow, appreciate it. So, man, how's it going? Happy Saturday. How's everyone doing? Couple things before I get started. Last time in the stream, some people gave some feedback, and people have given this feedback before about, hey, it's hard to know what question you're answering or what thing you're talking about right now. Just because sometimes you get behind in chat. So I'm going to try something a little bit different today. This is not permanent, but this is a just based on some feedback for you. So if things look odd or look different, let me know. They're going to look odd and look different, that's for sure. Hey, Drunk Ronnie, thanks for the sub, Prime sub. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Man, my lights. I love it that they're like 200 milliseconds off. So they're just like, it's awesome. Hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. But anyways, as I was saying, I'm based on your guys' feedback, I'm gonna try something a little bit different. If this works well, I'm gonna write my own custom code to do all of this myself. So anyways, how's everyone doing? Happy Saturday. What are you guys working on? The question I like to ask you guys on Saturday mornings, even on Tuesdays, Thursdays, whenever it is, what are you guys working on? What tech projects are you working on? What problem are you trying to solve? What thing are you thinking about doing? What thing are you thinking about implementing? Hardware you're thinking about buying, considerations, and then any questions you have for me that maybe I can answer while you have my undivided attention. I know that's kind of hard to get. Sometimes it's it's hit or miss on Discord just because I have a lot going on, as we all do. But now you have my undivided attention. So let's get into it. So who was first? Let me see if I can do this keyboard way. Hey, PC Geek. Hey, thanks for being in here first. How's it going, man? Thanks so much for all you do. What's up, Black Falcon? Hey, what's up? How's it going? Howdy, folks. Salvarius. I'm gonna go mouse because I got to do too many tabs. I don't understand that, but I assume Mafni. It's how are you, Tim? That kind of looks like Tim. I don't know if that is, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. How's it going? Good to see you. Glad you're in here. Let's see, Mafni, I understood that. Salvarius, okay, I didn't understand it, but I could kind of get the gist from the English below, so appreciate it. Throwaway, good evening, Tim. Hey, how's it going? How are you doing today? Good evening, so that must mean you're out east, or east of me, at least I should say. Thunderstorm, hey, how's it going? Yeah, Salvarius. Duolingo really likes Tim. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll go for it. PC Geek, hey Tim, you have transcoding options today. Woo! So that was something else that was based on the live stream's feedback too. I think a lot of people have asked if I can give transcoding options, and I went into this long explanation about, transcoding options are only guaranteed if you're a partner. I'm not a partner yet, so I get transcoding options when they want to give me transcoding options. And so it's basically, I think they just kind of, I don't know if they do any kind of prediction on how many people are going to attend. I don't know what their algorithm is. But today, Twitch's transcoding algorithm likes me, so I appreciate it. How's it going? Info upgraders, yo, how's it going? How are you doing? PC Geek, must be enough available resources for it. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I don't know what the algorithm's based on. I mean, maybe it's on how many people join, how busy their servers are. I'm gonna go with how busy their servers are. Give me just 1 second. I just realized that it's a little warm in here. I gotta turn on the fan. When you have these many lights and PCs and lights and cameras going, it gets kind of warm. That's okay, because it's like -2 out here. So I think the whole entire, at least most of North America, almost all the United States is under polar vortex right now. It's pretty cold anywhere in the US. So yeah, it's pretty cold, but it's stays toasty warm in here because I have so many devices. Ashel, hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. Welcome, how you doing? Salvarius, trying to wrap my head around capabilities of Home Assistant and trying to figure out how to get some integrations going. Nice. Yeah, it can be daunting. I mean, I still have my instance running. I did configure lights, some devices, some scenes. It can be daunting at first. You know, I don't want to say it's not user friendly, but it's definitely, you know, you have to have some knowledge of devices, YAML, configs, where things live. But it's getting better every day. And I do think that if you go down that route with Home Assistant, it's definitely worth it in the end. It's definitely worth it in the end because you'll end up with a system that's always going to work with your devices. And as long as you don't update firmware and whatever on some of your devices, they should always work. And even if you do update firmware, Home Assistant team that open source project, everyone contributing to that is fantastic because they find workarounds for everything. I mean, there's so much ingenuity going on and engineering going on in that repo. It's just fantastic, and it's a community of people trying to give you access to all your IoT devices, pull all those ecosystems into one. So I think it's great. I think it'll pay off. It takes some upfront investment of time, knowledge. And even learning and cutting over to that instead of using your other stuff. But yeah, for sure. PC Geek, I'm looking for a new office chair. Oh, nice. Yeah, I can give a recommendation. It's probably not the greatest one, but I think I did in Discord before. But real quick, Trash Dev. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. How you doing? Yeah, I ended up getting Herman Miller used one off of Craigslist, and it's like the best. It's like one of the best. It's the one that has the weird, funky like spine coming up the back, and it's really great for me because I'm super tall. Probably can't tell that on stream because I'm standing, but I am tall. I'm like 6'5", and so this is one of the chairs that were like can fit my back because I have a long torso. This is getting weird. Anyways, hey, Mallow. Hey, thanks for the resub Prime. 2 months. Dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. But yeah, I'll ping you some links. I think I told you before, but yeah, I'll share them in Discord for sure later of what I have, if you're interested. And if not, I'll put it out there. You could take it. If not, just ignore it. Mr. Joebot, good evening all from the UK, and hope you're all staying safe. Hey, good evening in the UK. Good afternoon in the US. It's not. Is it morning anywhere in the US? It's not right now. So anyways, it's morning somewhere. Good morning to someone if they're watching this, maybe way out east. Kuroi Kage-san, if you're here. He's the only one I know that's far enough east to where it would be tomorrow. If that makes sense. PC Geek. Oh, Chicano, hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you. PC Geek, sick of gaming chair deal. Yeah, want all mesh, preferably, hoping it's more comfortable than dense foam and flip up armrest and rests that don't get in the way. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my chair. Exactly my chair. I mean, it's not full mesh, but it has mesh and then padding so that your back can still breathe. But look up Herman Miller and Body. They're super expensive. Super expensive. I'm not gonna lie, but I didn't pay full price. You can find them on Craigslist, and you can find them anywhere, secondhand market. Unfortunately, there's lots of them on the market, at least when I checked last time, because unfortunately, a lot of businesses are closing, offices are closing, shared workspaces are shutting down or downsizing. So it's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, you might be able to get a deal, and at the same time, probably help them out because they probably need some cash. Anyways, Herman Miller and Body, I love it, and it's nothing fancy to look at least from the front. People see it on stream, they're just going to think it's a regular chair, but you will sit in that chair just thinking, man, this is great. And I will say it takes a week or two to just kind of get adjusted to it, or it to adjust to you. So anyways, status. Yeah, I tried status in my bot. What am I doing? I should know my own bot commands, but the fact that I ran status and it came back with an error tells me that, hey, my bot's online. Hey, Cameron. Thanks, Cameron. 1789. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. How you doing? Banana's a good way to check too. ISO. I'm gonna go with ISO. I see your name all the time. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna go with ISO. But tell me it's different and I'll fix it. Good evening from Norway. Hey, good afternoon from the United States. Jack at Bandcast. I gotta highlight the message so you guys know which one I'm on. Just finished a stream building Game of Life in JSONnet. Wait, just finished a stream building a Game of Life in JSONnet. Nice. Yeah, I know the Game of Life. It's a common programming challenge that people like to do. It's called the Game of Life, and I think it's little dots and they repeat and grow and something like that. But anyways, awesome. Hope it went well, Jack at Bandcast. Hope you're doing well. Pretty awesome. And JSONnet. I don't know JSONnet. Like I know what JSON is. I know what .net and just net in general is. JSONnet. I have to look into that. Mr. Joebot, gaming chairs aren't the way to go. Get something actually designed for sitting in rather than looking like a race car seat. Yeah, I think that's the common criticism you hear about, all the racing style chairs. I almost got one because I was like, man, how can this many people be wrong? Because so many people have them. And to be honest, I've never sat in one. They look comfortable. I hear, back and forth about people, either you love them or you hate them, I think. I'm in between. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I'm in between because I don't know enough about them. Hey, Grenade Proof Man. All right, Grenade Proof. Thank you so much for the Prime sub. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. But yeah, you hear there's controversy around the chairs and whether or not they're ergonomic, and it runs the gamut of opinions. I went for one that was designed for sitting first. I've already rambled about that, but for sure. Info upgraders, YouTube. Hey man, how's it going? Good to see you. I'm glad you can join the stream. We have transcoding options, according to PC Geek. Hopefully they're still there. Because I think last time you were having some issues connecting at 1080p, 60 frames per second, and my 6,000 kilobits per second. I don't know why. I have a reason why I stream that high, because sometimes I clip the stream and, but it's not fair to you guys. Anyways, finding a workaround. Gaming chairs boost performance. Yeah, they do. Depends on what color too. I heard RGB boost performance too. RGB in your room or anywhere on your PC boosts performance or saves energy or you name it. Whatever skill you want, you just turn on that color. ISO. Hey, country neighbor, Sweden here. All right, Tofflin. Hey, welcome. How's it going? Holy Merc. Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. Mafney. Looking at secondhand home lab servers. Nice, yeah. You come to the right place. A lot of people are like Dell and HP servers. I think a community favorite in general are going to be Dell servers. R710, R720, any of the R series. People just love them, and they're so affordable. I don't want to say cheap because you're still going to spend anywhere from whatever, $300 to $700 depending on which one, how many drives, how much RAM, which CPUs. But a great value, I'll say that. But yeah, let me know what you're thinking, Mafney. Liquid Lego, I like it. Liquid Lego. That'd be like 3D printing a Lego before it cools. Anyways, hi everyone. I'm trying to make my own home lab. All right. I'm having trouble getting Pfsense to work in Proxmox. I want to make Pfsense a firewall between my real network, only one NIC and PC, and my VM home lab. Yeah, so I'm curious what the problem is. I'll just spit out a couple of things to check just in case. Maybe this is not obvious, but you'll need to make sure your motherboard, supports IOMMU so you can pass through that network card. I don't know where the specific area is, so I'm going to talk high level about common pitfalls. So you want to make sure your motherboard supports IOMMU, that your CPU supports IOMMU, that you've turned it on in the motherboard and enabled it, that your CPU, when I say your CPU supports IOMMU, I think then it needs to support this feature for Intel. It's VT-D, and I think it's AMD is virtualization. I need to look at the flag again. Anyways, make sure your CPU supports it. Then you'll have to turn it on in Proxmox. So at the OS level, you have to turn it on. And then you'll have to pass it through. After that, it should be as easy as passing that NIC through to the Pfsense, and then adding a virtual NIC, a Linux bridge to this virtual network switch, right? So that Linux bridge is going to act like a switch, and then you connect all your virtual machines to that. And so, real quick, X-Tine Senpai, X-Tien, oh man, I got the Senpai right. I'm gonna go Xiantian. No, I'm not gonna try to pronounce things. Anyways, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. Let me know how to pronounce your name, because I'd love to. The X's, you never know. Sometimes they're spaces, sometimes they're pronounced, sometimes you pronounce it as a X, sometimes SH, who knows? Let me know, because I'd like to pronounce it right. Anyways, but going back to Pfsense, yeah, so, I mean, it just boils down to hardware NIC, then a virtual NIC. That virtual NIC is probably a Linux spawn that connects to a virtual switch that then all your virtual machines then connect to. And so then you have a whole entire virtual network that is connected to a virtual port on your Pfsense. So let me know if that helps. Mr. Jobo, hey, how's it going? I've integrated the Anchor. I'm going to Anchore. I shouldn't put my own spin on it, but I'm going to go with Anchor? No, Anchor. I'm going to go with Anchor. Tell me I'm wrong. Security scanner into Harbor. Okay, it probably is Anchor. Into Harbor. Oh no, wait, that's totally different product. I thought they were going with a nautical theme. Anyways, Harbor, which is VMware's container registry. Now whenever I deploy my K8s cluster, I get automated vulnerability scanning of my containers. I like it. I like it. It's funny. I've been investigating this stuff too, outside of here and personal stuff. I've been investigating this too. So container or image scanning for vulnerabilities. That's really awesome. I like it. I know that Google GCP does the same thing. Like a lot of people have this, can do that too. But I didn't know that about Harbor for VMware. I've seen it because it's their open source. I think that's their open source container registry. Because I was doing some research for something else, like I mentioned, for basically doing the same thing, and I stumbled into Harbor, didn't look too much into it, and then I noticed that Google Cloud also offers this too. So really awesome. I like it. I like it. And so if you're not familiar, what it's going to do is it's going to scan that image that you just built for vulnerability. So I think it's going to look at the base image. It's going to look at each additional layer, scan those for vulnerabilities, and let you know. And so how does that help? Well, if you're running if you're running a container based on that image, then it can let you know and say, hey, this image has a vulnerability. You have this implemented probably in these places. You need to update your base image and then update all your containers. Super cool stuff. Super cool. PC Geek new chat overlay. Yeah, this is I'm trying to get a little bit better every time, and so this was based on some feedback from last stream. I figured this was a little bit better so you guys know, where I'm at, what question I'm answering, and to prove to you, this stream isn't pre-recorded, because that was one of the other things. Someone was like, "Is this stream pre-recorded?" I don't understand what's going on, so it's not pre-recorded. I'll hold up a newspaper with today's date. Sounds kind of weird. Anyways, info upgraders, Liquid Lego. There are lots of videos out there for that. Yeah, for sure, there are. But let me know if you have more questions around that. Jacket Bandcast. Oh, also got Pomerium set up and have authenticated ingress to my public K8s cluster. Nice. I think this is very similar to what HomeLab New was trying to do. I like it. I like it. You'll have to share how you did that. I would love if you shared that in Discord, what you followed, or maybe it's just that simple. Super awesome. Super awesome. So then you could probably pick and choose which workloads are authenticated. And then so you probably only need one reverse proxy, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. Awesome. Man, that is awesome. Learning so much already. Man, 10 minutes in and I've already learned a ton. Holy Merc, we got 340p for mobile. Yes. Twitch, thank you, Twitch overlords, for giving me transcoding. Well, thank you. Honestly, I think the best signal that they have is people being here and being on different devices. So I really appreciate it. So, I mean, I shouldn't be thanking Twitch, thanking all of you for being here on different connection types, different places in the world, different device and screen size. Because that's probably a really good signal to Twitch to say, you should probably give this guy transcoding options. Because they know what happens if they don't. People, leave Twitch. And they want people to stay on Twitch. Anyways, enough about the meta Twitch game. Liquid Lego, info upgraders, hello, thanks, will do. Takano, thinking of maybe downscaling size, we may end up moving into a smaller house. Yeah, you mentioned that in Discord. exciting. Yeah, I mean, I hope that's a good thing. I don't know. I don't enjoy the act of moving, but I like. So I don't enjoy the process of moving, but I enjoy the act of moving. It's just like a fresh start on so many things. So hopefully it works out, dude. Let me know. Alias. I'm going to go with that. Hi, how's it going? Oh my gosh. Greg's are, oh, okay. I'm going to go with Greg Kowski. Greg Kowski. That's what I'm going with. There's a lot of letters in between there. Hi, I'm Greg Score. I'm going to go with that. Okay, I'll go Greg Score. I bought an ASRock Desk Mini X300 and built my first home lab with Proxmox based on your video. Hey, awesome, man. Awesome. Which resource is more important, Proxmox words? Words are hard. Which resource is more important for Proxmox, CPU or RAM? That's a tough question. That's like, what's the most important part of a car? The engine, or I don't know, name something else, transmission. They're both important. They both play an important role, especially in virtualization. If you're running lots of virtual machines, you're going to run into a constraint at some point. And I'll throw another one in the mix. It's hard drive. And so it's a combination. You just need to find the sweet spot of enough RAM, a fast enough hard drive, and then enough CPU or enough compute. And so, it depends on your workloads. If you have lots of Windows machines, all of those are going to be really important because Windows uses a lot of CPU, uses a lot of it keeps the disk really active, I should say that, a lot of I/O, and then can take a lot of RAM. If you're doing something like Ubuntu servers, yeah, no questions there at all. I mean, the only thing you would run into if you had lots of workloads and they were all servers, is the Reboot Storm that can happen on virtualization. And what is Reboot Storm or Shutdown Storm, whatever you want to call it? It's basically or Startup Storm. It's basically when all of your virtual machines start up at the same time. So a good thing to do is to stagger those, maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds each, so you don't suffer from that. So every machine in your virtual infrastructure doesn't suffer. Anyways, if I had to pick one out of all those, I would go with RAM. So why would I go with RAM? Because RAM is tasty. No, because most of the time, at least what I've learned in my virtualization, a lot of my virtual machines are I don't want to say dormant, but they're not really super active. Yes, I have a lot of virtual machines. Yes, I'm running Kubernetes. Yes, I, run any container you could even think about, a lot of custom code. But most of the time, it's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5% CPU. If I'm running something like Blue Iris, or a Plex transcode is going off, sure, it's going to spike. But most of the time, they're pretty dormant. Web servers, right? Web servers is a classic example. It's almost like on demand, not truly on demand. But the only time the web server is going to do something, besides tiny bit for logging, is when someone makes a web request. Well, do you have a very, very active blog that you're hosting? No. Well, it's not going to use too many compute cycles. So anyways, if I had to pick out all of those, I'll throw even hard drive in there too. I would probably pick more RAM. That would probably be the way I go. Because, the more virtual machines you have, the more RAM you're going to end up using. I don't know. That's what I'll go with. Convince me. Doorway. I'm curious, what's the best structure when mixing hypervisors in Docker? Thank you. Oh, yeah. Best structure, I don't know. So the way I usually architect my stuff is, I have a hypervisor, that is Proxmox. I'm going to highlight this message so you guys know what I'm asking. I should make that bigger. Anyways, that's what I did. I did that. Anyways, note to self, make font bigger. I have a general architecture for my stuff. This is the way I've done it because it seems to work, and it works across. It works cross hypervisors, cross whatever, virtual machines. And so my general idea is I pick a hypervisor. On that hypervisor, I run a virtual machine. On that virtual machine, then I run my containers. I don't typically run them on my hypervisor because it's separation of concerns. I probably say that a lot, but it's separation of concerns. Let my hypervisor be a hypervisor. let my virtual machine that's going to do containerization do that. Sure, you could argue I'm going to get a 2% to 5% hit on just performance loss, but I'll take it. I'll take it for all the benefits of virtualization and not having to deal with that stuff on my virtual host. Anyways, so then from there, it's really just, if you're just doing plain old Docker, I have one virtual machine that has lots of Docker containers, and I manage those through Portainer. Those are containers for now that I don't want to put in Kubernetes for whatever reason. So you'll have to make these decisions too. Then there are things I want in Kubernetes because I want high availability. I'll say that, but really I want max uptime. I want monitoring. I want logging. And I want to be able to move those containers around. If one virtual machine's down, just spin it up somewhere else. I want that service to be highly available. And then there's things I just run on a virtual machine because of whatever constraint I have or whatever it is that I have that makes me run on a virtual machine. I do. So it's kind of, it's up to you. Really, it's up to you. And I will put, this is all under the preface that, what I always say is like, use what works best for you. If Kubernetes is too dense and too complicated right now, use Docker. If that's too dense and too complicated, use a virtual machine. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that needs to support it. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question. A lot of high level stuff, but if you have really specific things, let me know too. I can go high level or specific, either way. Tucano, power usage was also a concern, but the whole rack pulls around 80 to 110 watts. Hey, I think that's pretty good. Having a whole entire rack of stuff only pull 80 to 100 watts, I think that's good, me personally. Mine pulls a little more than that, just a little more. But I think that's good. Could it be better? I don't know. I don't know what's running there. Sure, things could always be better, but I think that's pretty good. I think that's good, depending on how much stuff you're running. Tofflin, you look very excited and full of energy today. Thank you. I don't know. Thank you. That's a good observation. Yeah, I do. When I get on stream and it's live, I have a different energy, and it's weird because they're flip-flopped. On YouTube, I'm just kind of like really, laid back because I'm talking to a camera and I'm, saying what I'm thinking in my head. And it's either things I wrote down or things that I think of. And, it's just different. It's way different than being live. And so, most people bring all their energy to YouTube. I kind of bring that to Twitch. And it's not on purpose. It's just my personality. So anyways, thank you. Appreciate it. PC Geek is based on resources available at the time of stream, I believe. Yeah, I like it. John 5S, John, I'm gonna go with John. Hey Tim, thanks for the great content. Hey, no problem, appreciate it. Thank you for saying that. Thanks for being here too. Wicked Blue Ninja, hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it, welcome. Thank you so much. PC Geek, 37 here today and sunny. 66 here, all right, 77. Mafni, -4 Celsius and lots of snow in Norway. Yeah, sounds like here in Minnesota. It is cold. And yeah, I even heard this morning, so Duluth is north, way north in Minnesota and near Canada, and they actually had to cancel one of their winter festivals. I think it's called the Cold Front Festival because it was too cold. That's how cold it is here. But we've seen worse. We've seen worse here. Like, -2. I've been here when it's been like -22 and the wind chill's -50. So, I think this is quite all right. It's cold if you go outside. I didn't plan on going outside anyway, so, it could be -10, it could be, whatever, 10, and I'm most likely not going to hang out outside. Oh, geez, Trash Dev, how's it going? Hey, oh, man, that's a tough one to say. Bill Get To. I'm going to go with that. Bill Get To. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. How you doing? Ilude, balmy, 34 degrees Fahrenheit here. Was just outside in a t-shirt talking to a neighbor for a few minutes. All right, I like it. Yeah, it sounds like Minnesota. If it's 40 here, people in shorts, they're just like, yep, shorts time, shorts and a hoodie, and maybe go for a walk. People are pretty hardy here. I love it. Chicano was also able to finally go for a drive on the main roads. Nice. Cousin took me to a random neighborhood and made me go for a couple of rounds to get a feel of the car, and then just let me drive around for a bit and then drive back home. Nice, man. Getting a new car, test drive. I think I missed the earlier one on that. Nice, man. John 5S, I have a Discord question for you. How did you get all the icons next to your channel names? Hey, thanks. This is I'll keep it short. Use the keyboard input. So use the keyboard input for Windows. So if you're on Windows, here's a tip. If you're on Windows and you're on any form, if you hold down the Windows key and hit, you could even do it in here in chat if you want, I encourage you. Hold down the Windows key and then hit a period. That will open Windows 10. They have a emoji keyboard. That'll pop open the emoji keyboard and you can plug one in there. On Mac, it's Command, Option, Space. And that's how you do it. On Linux, I totally forget. I should know that because I just went through a whole bunch of Linux stuff, or at least Ubuntu. And so every OS has their own version of emojis, and then they all have their own way to input it. Similar to how you have an emoji keyboard on mobile. Well, desktop's like, I'm not gonna miss out on this. And so that's how you do it. So on Windows, it's hold down the Windows key, hit period. You can do that anywhere. So you don't have to go out to Emojidex and copy and paste emojis. You get all your emoji keyboard right there. And then you can search through them and put them there. So then that's what you do in your channel names. You just edit your channel name, put your emoji there in front, and then save it. I will say though that every OS renders them a little bit different in channel names. So if you're expecting, I don't know, the hammer one to look as good as Discord's hammer, it's not, because every OS has their own version of an emoji. And when you put an emoji in the channel name, it's gonna default to the OS versions of the emoji. I know way too much about this because I've been doing it for a long time. So a little bit different. And then you'll have to find ones that look good cross-platform. When you look at your channel name and you have an emoji on it, on Windows, looks pretty good. But then if you go into iOS, Android, Mac, Linux, web, they all look different. So anyways, channel name emojis are based on the operating system. I know way too much about emojis on operating systems. Anyways, that's how you do it. Emoji codes, yeah, you can copy and paste them too. Yeah, emoji codes or ASCII codes, that'll do it too. I would recommend just using the emoji keyboard because it's fun. And that's how you do it anywhere. So you don't have to go and copy and paste anything. If you need to put it in an email, a Word document, you don't have to click any buttons. You got emoji keyboard built into every operating system. Hugh Funking knew it. How's it going? Hey, Techno Tim. Been watching your videos in home labs at Proxmox. Busy installing minimal Debian with an i3WM with Proxmox and Docker. Nice. I like it. Sounds like you're building up, a really solid platform for your workloads. That's what I choose. So I'm Proxmox and then Docker, and then arguably I get Kubernetes too. Awesome. Sounds awesome. Chicano, some issues breaking to earlier, realizing it and rolling to the right, and then light, and then pressing on the brake hard, and others then doing all right. Some issues breaking too earlier, realizing it and rolling towards the light. Yeah. Get the brakes checked. Yeah. If you're planning on buying a car, go get it inspected. I know that's the last thing you want to. This is my advice. If you're going to buy a car, take it somewhere to get inspected. That's my advice. Because while a test drive, it might seem right, it may seem okay, there might be some things you miss. And I know it kind of stinks to go pay whatever you'd pay for an inspection from a mechanic, or if you know a mechanic, have them look at it. But I would do it because they're going to uncover or see things that you might not see in a test drive. I don't know. There's my life tip for today. And I know it stinks. You're super excited to buy a car and you're like, nope, this is it. But, if you get a used one, get a second opinion, especially if it doesn't come with a warranty. If it comes with a warranty, then you still might want to, but who knows? But I know how it is to buy a used car and you're just like, nope, this is it. Why would I do that? Why would I spend $80, $90 on getting an inspection? But sometimes it can really help out. Anyways, PC Geek, yeah, and all the channel names, Emojipedia has them all. Yeah, for sure. Hugh Funking knew it. I like it. What are your thoughts on Proxmox plus Webmin? Yeah, so two different things, and maybe they're not anymore. I haven't used Webmin in a long, long time. I haven't used Webmin in a long time. I used to because I'd run Ubuntu server and I wasn't the greatest at running, Ubuntu or Bash, I should say, or Bash or ZSH. I wasn't great in a terminal in Ubuntu way back. And so I always install Webmin because I'm like, this is cool, and now I can do all the things through a web page. And I agree, it's still cool. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But it installs a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that I may or may not need. So I tend not to anymore. And so Proxmox is really, Proxmox is a hypervisor. And the web GUI, the web UI that they give you is to manage the hypervisor piece, whereas Webmin is to manage everything else. And I think you're asking maybe to install them both on the same machine. I'm not sure, because going back to my previous comment, I let my hypervisor be a hypervisor only, and I try not to do too much in Proxmox from a terminal. I mean, obviously there are a couple things I need to do that I summarized in a video, but other than that, I just leave it alone because, those are the things I forget about. If it goes down, if I need to restore it, if I need to move it, if I need to move to a different hypervisor altogether, those are the things that make it different enough that will make that part painful. And so anyways, but yeah, I haven't used Webmin in a while, totally familiar with it. Used to love it. Installed it on every Linux server. Now I don't install it in any, but I'm sure it's a great tool still. P. Lucas, Jose, installing Proxmox and an i3 too, just having some pain with IOMMU with LSI RAID, same group as network device. Oof, yeah, to split those up. It is tough. So I've split them up before. I think I have some documentation on it. It's tough, but how is it on the same group? And that's interesting. So your network devices and your network devices and your LSI card are on the same group. That's tough. I wonder how they are. Maybe a riser card. I'm trying to think how that would happen, because usually you see that if it's a multifunction device, right? If you put in a PCI device that has 4 NICs, right? And then so all 4 of those NICs are in the same group. So interesting. Let me know how you figure that one out. That one's going to be tough. Those are tough. I've had to do it before. I've divided up 4 NICs on an onboard, the 4 gigabit NICs on an R710. I divided all those up individually, and it became chaos. And I was just like, I'm just going to install another NIC on here. I got plenty of PCI slots. Jigman 1056. Hi Tim, first time joining the live stream, but I've watched a lot of your videos. Thank you. I've learned a ton. Thanks for what you do. Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Holy Merc, i3 does not support IOMMU. Hey, good call. I didn't even catch that one. I have to look. So yeah, does an i3 support VT-D? I don't know. I think the lowest I or Intel processor I've ever purchased, I think, was an i5. So never did i3. That's dual core. But yeah, does it support VT-D? Good call, Holy Merc. iLude, I like mesh back, but padding seat for sure. Yeah, totally agree. This one's tough to read. Radnire. Oh, cool. Johnny Depp is a Twitch streamer. Who'd have thunk it? Oh man, it finally made its way to Twitch. So that's something that people say all the time. People say that all the time on YouTube, but normally that doesn't make its way to Twitch, and I think there's some crossover. But anyways, hey, thanks. I'll take it. Cool Johnny Depp. Well, that was cool, probably. Johnny Depp is a Twitch streamer. I'll take it. Why not? I've been called worse. Gimli, Theone. Hey, Timo. How are you doing? Hope you're doing great. I am doing great. I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. P. Lucas. Holy Merc does mine. The i3, it's enabled. Having problems pass through the PCI card, same group. So you guys are trying to figure that out. Yeah, I mean, going back to what Holy Merc was saying, P. Lucas, might want to check to make sure that your i3 supports VT-D. Intel has great documentations on all their CPUs and show all of the flags it support. And so you'll just want to see if it supports VT-M and then VT-D. I think it's M. VT-V and D. I think those are both of the flags on the CPU. They'll want to be true. If neither of those, if both aren't true, then you might not be able to do PCI pass-through. You could still do virtualization if it supports it. But anyways, Ron Potal, what are your thoughts on Proxmox with Pfsense versus Proxmox with Sophos XG? Yeah, I lived in both. Real quick. So what are my thoughts? Yeah, I've lived both of those lives. And where do I go? I ended up moving. So I was on Pfsense for a long time. and then I moved to XG Firewall. One, because I got bored. There wasn't anything wrong with Pfsense. It's a great product. But network firewalls, I get bored. I get the itch. Every 6 months, year, I'd get bored and I'd see, ooh, new shiny, and I'd want to go towards that. And so that's what I did with XG Firewall. And it was good. It had a great UI, and it tied in a lot of the things that are just add-ons or plugins in Pfsense. And so I thought, well, hey, here's this product that gives me this integration, and I don't have to install all of these plugins that didn't really feel native on Pfsense. And so I went with that for a long time. And I, to be honest, I stuck with it for longer, mainly because it was pretty complicated to set up. So I will say they have a totally different approach to networking in general than I was used to, because I did Pfsense, I did OpenSense, I've done Smoothwall, Monowall, Untangle, you name it. And Untangle is a little bit different too. But anyways, they had a different paradigm, different nomenclature for what things meant and how you set things up. They do have this thing called a WAF, which was the Web Application Firewall, which basically created an Nginx reverse proxy for you, which was pretty cool, and that's what I wanted to leverage, but it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, so I couldn't even leverage that. Anyways, I would say if you're virtualizing them both, another reason why I say, hey, virtualizing your firewall is great, is you can evaluate both of these at the same time. You can set one up in your virtual network. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to pass through a hardware NIC, but you could, create two virtual NICs on it, create a virtual network and connect a client to it and evaluate it that way and see if you like it. It's exactly how I evaluated stuff. That's how I used to migrate stuff. Because I wasn't gonna take my internet down or network down for a day or two or until I figured it out. I was gonna make sure most of it worked. I got most of my port forwarding, all the rules set up before I cut over, and then deal with any bugs or fixes once I've deployed it or migrated. I'm sorry, I'm talking software development terms. Same idea, just different terminology. So anyways, I would say, like, if you're interested, just evaluate them both. I mean, you already have the virtualization infrastructure there in place. Yeah, spin one up. Check it out. Let me know. Salvarius, just asked Holy Merc about the performance boost you get with RGB. I totally agree. It's choose your attribute, and then you get it. And Holy Merc, he's on borderline if he's going overboard or not with RGB. I enjoy it. He posts a lot of pictures and videos of his builds in Discord, and they're fantastic. Lots of RGB going on, but I love it. I have some of my own. I mean, arguably, this whole entire room is RGB right now. And worth mentioning, you can change it. You earn 1,000 points. You click on the little channel points button below. You can change the room color in here, too, with some code I wrote and with points. And they're totally free, 100% free. I love it. Every time I mention it, someone does it. So thank you. PC Geek, Pfsense and Proxmox if you aren't doing NIC pass-through, and using VirtIO NIC to turn off the hardware and offloading in the Pfsense GUI. Yeah, nice. I'm back up here a little bit. I'm jumping back. JSONnet is a data templating language from Google. Think JSON if you've mixed Python and JavaScript into the mix. My aim was just trying to see how far I could push the configuration language. Nice. Yeah, it's new to me. I know JSON. It's the web runs on JSON. Totally familiar with that, not JSONnet, so I like it. I'll have to look into it. Gimli Theon, LOL. Actually, Peanuts, hey, how's it going? +1 for OpenSense. Read a few docs in the code base, licensing fixes. Also, virtual networking with virtualized firewall. Many people will recommend ESXi for that one. I am one of them. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I'm a fan of ESXi for sure. I mean, that thing is finely tuned, very performant. Just not a fan of the licensing, at least for home. It's tough to pay that much money if you're just tinkering or playing or doing home stuff. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of ESXi too. Weslow, working on Kate's with Active Directory auth. Do you have any tips? Oh man, no, no. So when you say Active Directory, you don't. Maybe you do, maybe you don't mean Microsoft Active Directory. I don't know if you can containerize that. I don't think so. But if you're just talking about like open LDAP or directory services, I haven't done it. I know quite a few people ask, what I run for directory services at home. I don't right now. And should I? I think I still need to be convinced. Should I to learn? Probably. But you know, I don't have a domain here internally. I probably should for as many machines that I have, and how much config I do. But anyways, yeah, I don't have any tips. I don't know if Microsoft's AD, so true, you know, Active Directory, has a Docker container for it. I'm sure they're want to or work on it, but I'm not sure. I don't have any tips. Open LDAP, there's a lot of free directory services, open source ones out there too. I don't know if that'll fit the bill, but it's probably not going to give you the full, you know, Microsoft AD, you know, experience that you're thinking about. Group policies, all that stuff. Real quick, HomeLab New, resub, tier 1, 7 months, 3 months straight. Dude, thank you so much. 7 months. Wow, man. How's it going? Hi, Tim. Hey, how's it going? And Exile Cam, thanks for follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Zaitan is short for, oh, Christian. Gotcha. See, another use for the X, just like Christmas. Gotcha. Okay, I'm there. I'm there with you, because people use Xmas and they mean Christmas, because X is Christ. Gotcha. Christian, like it. So it's Christian Senpai. Hey, thanks for clarifying. Thank you so much. That makes things so much easier when instead of stumbling on it every time. Shivam, how are you, buddy? Good. I'm good. Skull, hey, how's it going? Good to see you, man. How you doing? I say man. I should say person, but then that sounds weird. But hey, Skull, how you doing? Christian Senpai, got it right. Glad I found your stream. LOL. Nice try. Christian is short for Christian. Christian, because I hate it when people call me Chris. Oh, I never would have guessed it that Christian is short for Chris, but I see how that is. I see how that could be. Tofflin, Techno Tim, I have dual streaming set up and I want to get the absolute best quality. What should I use for transcode streams, NVENC or beefy CPU? So this is a very long debate. People will say that arguably, like, so software-based encoding, so x264 CPU-based encoding is the most accurate. I'll say that. And so that quote-unquote might be best, right? Because you're going to get the most accurate transcode, less artifacting, color representation, all of that stuff that you see that happens sometimes when you transcode stuff. So people, I think, if they want absolute best quality and you have a dual PC stream, most people go H.264, and then so they use, but I've seen it both ways, right? And that doesn't make it right or wrong, because at the end of the day, Twitch is going to end up re-encoding that thing and shooting it out to people too. So, you know, you have that. You know, I will say that I'm a huge fan of NVENC. I've streamed on NVENC for years. This stream is on NVENC. Does it look okay? I don't know, because I won't be able to see it until later. And I have some things tweaked too. But anyways, I will say that NVENC is fantastic, and you know, it's a dedicated chip on your GPU that, you know, is unused. It's, you know, all of that power is left on the table if you don't use it. And so for me, I'd rather save my CPU for other cycles, so things that my OS needs, rather than, you know, encoding it there. And plus, if I tried to do both while gaming, that doesn't always work out so well. Doesn't apply to you because you're using a dual PC stream. So on your second PC, I would run a test. I would do it once with NVENC and do it one with H.264, see what works best for you. And at the same time, I would monitor that second machine to make sure that you're not pegging the CPU, pegging the GPU, you know, do all the things you would normally do. And then on top of all that, I will caveat the whole thing with, you know, NVENC is really efficient. It's really efficient. And so you use a lot less power to do it on NVENC. And maybe you don't care about that, but maybe you do. It's going to use a lot less power, a lot less heat. And so another reason why I choose to do mine in NVENC. And also, I think it's a cool tech. Like I said, like, I don't want to leave all of that unused, you know, performance. It's left on the table if you don't use it. So, and arguably, I mean, unless you're really, really close, I mean, you got to think your audience is on a plethora of devices and screens and maybe web, maybe, you know, native apps, mobile apps. They're on everything, coming from everywhere. And at the end of the day, they're going to choose a transcoding, or Twitch is going to re-encode that thing for you. So if you're doing it for archival, then I would probably choose H.264 if you're going to record it, you know, on that second machine. But if you're just streaming it, I would go. I've seen people on their second machine go with a second lower end NVIDIA GPU and just use NVENC. You know, use an old, you know, GPU from NVIDIA. Use NVENC on that second machine, so your encoding machine, your second one, and do it that way. And then you don't have to worry about CPU. Anyways, NVENC for sure. All right. Yeah, sorry. Thanks, PC Geek, for sure. I think there's a long debate on which has the better quality. NVENC is getting closer and closer to H.264 every day. Anyways, Mafni is a Dell R720, 192 gigs of RAM, 2K, sorry, I can't see that, 2X, dual prox, E5 2660 at 2.2 gigahertz, no disk worth around 500. Yeah, I think that's about right. I think that's about right. You could pay more than that. That's for sure. Is it a good deal? I don't know. I'd have to compare. But I it sounds okay to me. No discs. I would almost prefer no discs because then you're not stuck with discs you might not end up using or replacing shortly after. I prefer no discs. Sounds good to me. Could you get it cheaper? Sure. But does it sound crazy, outlandish, expensive? Not to me. Jacket Bandcast, don't need container security scanning. All you need to build is your images from the scratch base. I will correct you. You still do need container security scanning because your original container could be based on, let's say, Ubuntu 2004. And that's a point in time. That's the day you built it. Well, tomorrow, or look at all the vulnerabilities that have been happening with sudo and all those other things. Sudo, oh man, I even contradicted myself on how I pronounce it because I used to pronounce it sudo, but I changed. Anyways, vulnerabilities, your container in your image is a point in time. And if you've frozen that point in time, that doesn't mean it's not vulnerable. Tomorrow it's vulnerable to something else, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So those vulnerabilities will creep up over time. And so where the container registry scanning your image for vulnerabilities can look at those things too. And so you would have to rebuild based on Ubuntu with additional patches. So I will say though that even if you go from scratch, you based it on some OS or some binary, you've included some dependencies, and those dependencies may or may not always be free of vulnerabilities. So yeah, I've been looking at this stuff a lot too over the last 2 weeks. So it's super interesting for it to come up. This is another case where I say like, hey, sometimes you learn stuff at home for work and vice versa. Now I'm kind of doing it both places. So I'm really glad you brought it up. Toplin, I heard of many people recommend NVENC, not firsthand though. Yeah, I have a ton of experience with both, but and I think a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions too. So it's awesome. Sodabound, any thoughts on about using Azure over SQL Server to help increase size and functionality? Sodabound. So using, I'll generalize this and using, I assume a PaaS or a SaaS version of SQL versus just plain old SQL. Hosting it yourself. I assume because in one part of the question you're talking about cloud offerings, the next you're just talking about a service, which is SQL, and I assume you mean Microsoft SQL or maybe it's MySQL. It doesn't matter. So it's cloud versus local. Depends on how much you want to pay, depends on your transactions, depends on a lot of stuff. I will say that if you go all in cloud, then, and you have a cloud-based SQL server or a cloud-based service, especially a database, you're going to have to move a lot of your services that talk to that database pretty close to that service, especially for database calls. Because you think of, on local network database calls, or if they're in Docker and they're linked, those containers are linked, it's near instantaneous. I mean, we're talking milliseconds. If you're doing that hop over the internet, now you're introducing hundreds of milliseconds, maybe shorter, maybe give or take some. But data transactions or database transactions are often frequent. And so, anyways, if you end up moving to the cloud, you might need to move those services that access that database closer to there. And so, cloud-based installations, or if you go with a PaaS. You get some nice things from it. You get all the security patches. Like you don't have to manage the virtual machine that it runs on anymore, right? But if you go with the SaaS, then you don't even have to manage the service itself. So, there's a lot of decisions there, and some have an impact on performance, and some have an impact on cost for sure. So, tell me more. Mr. Jobot, Harbor includes Trivy for vulnerability scanning, but Anchor, pronounced Anchor, yes, is much better. Lots of container registries in the cloud support vulnerability scanning too, but bringing that into home lab is fun. I totally agree. I've also been adding security testing to my CI/CD pipelines as much as possible, even performing security unit testing on some things too. I like it. Yeah, I like it. Unicorn, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's so funny. I've been looking into this stuff for work and for home too. So much you can do. So much you can do. And I'm so glad that the tools are there to be able to do it, especially during CI. Like you can do, package level vulnerability scanning. You can do container level vulnerability scanning. You can do static code analysis on all of your code that you're writing for vulnerabilities or for, weaknesses in your code. It's so cool. There's so much you can do. I'm super pumped about it because I've been investigating this at work too. So I'm in it right now too. But yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll have to check out Anchor. I'm familiar with it. Just need to look into it some more. But yeah, thanks for sharing. Thank you so much. PC Geek, I've used NVENC in a single PC and it takes encoding load off the CPU. 100% agree. 100% agree. I love it. I love it. Benjamin Hooper. Hello, everyone. First time joining the stream. I just transitioned roles from being primarily a back-end C# engineer to a more full-stack engineer. Any tips on learning front-end stack, primarily TypeScript, JavaScript, Angular? Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I'm not gonna lie, but I think you're in a good position. Why do I say that? Because you're doing C#. And why are you in a good position if you're doing C#? Well, if you're going to do TypeScript, it's very similar. I know that your tool chain is going to change, how you build things or transcribe. Your build tool chain might change, but the language is going to seem very familiar. However, I will say that once you get into, Angular is a good call because that uses it can use TypeScript and so can React. But I think you're in a good spot as long as you're willing to learn. I will say that front end is totally a different mindset, and yes, like I can do back end, front end, whatever, and I do in JavaScript, TypeScript, whatever, because developer, day job, home labber all the time. And a whole bunch of other things daytime too, because I work for a small startup. But anyways, I would just say, depending on which path you're going to go forward, it just really depends. And sorry, it's hard for me to find the words, but I will say that if you are thinking about Angular, it's going to be very different than if you are thinking about Vue, if you are thinking about React. And not so much like the business logic or any of the logic that you're going to write on the front end. It's more of just the tooling as well as how you construct those components. So all of them have this whole component model, and all of them have like a reactive architecture now, right? Rather than a bunch of watchers, listeners, and doing stuff. Or even forcing things to update. They react to state changes now and update themselves. Anyways, Angular's a good choice. I haven't done a ton of Vue. Good choice. React is going to be a good choice. I guess my only suggestion is if you do want to do more of it, is to really just start a little tiny project on your own machine. So I'll talk about React because I know that the best. Haven't done Angular in a while, but I've done a ton of it. React has this thing called Create React App. It's CRA. And you can run Create React App on your own machine. And you run this command, and in 5 seconds, you have a fully fledged React application. So a website, a web app. People call them apps now. But anyways, you have a fully fledged website on your own machine. So it's a client-side React application that you can run. And you can make changes. You can run it and make changes and see them update in real time. And so I would just recommend, doing a little bit of that, but at the same time, then kind of wrapping your head around, React as a whole. And I'm not saying React is the way to go. Whatever you're going to do, I would personally watch some videos about it, spin up their starter application and kind of go from there. And if you are, and if you're keeping your backend C#, totally fine. But it's going to be a big jump to then go to JavaScript, but not a hard one. And if you're going to go to TypeScript, a little bit easier. But you're going to have to learn new tools. You're going to have to learn about Node. You're going to have to learn about you name it, yarn, maybe, NPM, package management, dev dependencies versus client dependencies, a lot of stuff there. But super fun and a good, valuable tool, skill to learn. I mean, so many people want front-end developers right now. It's awesome because the explosion of microservices. You can thank microservices for all the for all the open positions now for front-end, and it's because I truly believe it's because of the explosion of microservices. Before you had monoliths and one big service and one big front end, so it was one-to-one. Now it's tons of little services that need lots of UI. So, anyways. Hopefully that helps. Actually, Peanuts, Azure is MS Hyperscaler SQL Server RDBMS. Okay. Sodabound. Okay. Azure hosted SQL. Okay. Server versus on-premise. I touched on all of those. Let me know if that answered your question. I will say if you, like I said before, if you do keep it on-prem or if you do keep it in the cloud, you're going to have to rethink some of your on-prem services that talk to that database because you're going to introduce a lot of latency. Maybe that's okay. But maybe not. PC Geek, actually, Peanuts was looking for other streams. Sometimes it's like NVENC struggle with transcoding. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I think I covered all that. Let me know if there's more you want to know in that area. Sodabound, where's the front end? On Azure, on SQL, on Azure? Yeah, these are all the questions I'm asking too. PC Geek, sometimes the generation 2 of NVENC, different cards can be different. Yeah. Tim has a video on an older one, but it has the best settings for OBS. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Grenade proof, man. Let me grab a drink real quick. What's the best way for a home labber to verify their own security? Oh man, yeah. Check. No. Yeah, that's tough because security is a huge topic, right? And I don't just mean like it's popular. I mean that, there's security on so many different levels of things you need to think about or consider or understand. I mean, just earlier we were talking about container level security and not even the container itself. It's the base image that you used to build that container or build that image. I'll get my terminology right. To build that image because images are, the thing you store and containers are the copy of the image. You run containers, but you pull images. Anyways, so what's the best way? Oof, that's tough. I mean, security covers every aspect of everything you do in your home lab or technology in general. So I think you got to kind of break it down by domain. So you'll have, I'm just going to high level, whatever I can rattle off real quick, but you'll want to take network security into consideration. And that can be its own rabbit hole of every single thing you can do. Things from VLANs to zero trust, like HomeLab likes to talk about, HomeLab New likes to talk about quite a bit, to, even simple as firewall rules, IDS, IPS, like all of those things, I'll just bundle into network security. And then you have OS security, right? So your operating systems, are they patched? Are their firewalls on, and all the things that go into OS security. Then you have, services. So service level or app level security. A process level security, and is the process that you're using secure? Is there a vulnerability in that? I mean, I think someone just posted the other day, there's a vulnerability people are exploiting in Plex and, maybe you should be updating Plex, and so, those are things you want to consider too. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I would kind of break up everything that you're doing within your home lab into domains like that. And do a little bit of research on, how you can secure that domain, and then it's going to be best effort. How much time do you have, and how much pain do you want? Because the best security is just turn the thing off. No one can hack something that's not running, but that's not the answer, right? So there has to be, middle ground, and so you'll have to figure out what that middle ground is. But I would recommend, like I said, breaking up into domain and then, applying most of those things to the things you care about, or go for the low hanging fruit that's gives you high return. Patching OS, kind of mundane. I enjoy it. I like it. But high, low effort, high return. And go after those first. And then attack all those across each domain, and then hone in on some more things. I don't know, super high level. Hopefully that gives you some things to think about. Let me know. Hardware Dynasty. Hello, everyone. It looks great. Thanks. Thanks. I don't know. I've been trying this thing like every couple weeks. I'm like, new year, new me. I don't know. No, I don't know. The last, during the whole entire COVID, I've just been like, I went from no hair to gonna grow my hair out to I don't know what I'm doing to I'm gonna shave some of it, I'm gonna fade it, I'm gonna shave part of it, I'm gonna spike it, curl it, whatever. I mean, I don't curl my hair, but it is curly, so I let it go. Anyways, enough about my hair. Thank you, appreciate it. I'm just experimenting. Who knows what it'll look like when we come out of all this. Actually, Peanuts, if on-prem, network latency will kill your SQL performance. Yeah, exactly what I was talking about. Sheep. I'm gonna go with the goat. Soderbound. Yes, and we need performance over space. Yeah, there we go. Aeolus. This might be very specific. I don't mind. I like specific questions because it's hard for me to ramble if they are specific questions because then I can usually answer them really quickly. But has anyone been able to set up a K3S cluster on a public cloud across regions and cloud providers? I'm currently trying it out with Oracle Cloud specifically in zero tier P2P VPN, but I have been having network issues, wondering if anyone had any tips or devices. Where did I come up with that? Advice. Anytime I see ICE now, I think device. Anyways, well, that was IVE, so I'm all over the place. So have I tried to do it like doing hybrid cloud? I'll just go with that, hybrid cloud, right? Because you're trying a hybrid cloud solution with K3S. And so if you're not familiar with K3S, it's a lightweight Kubernetes. No, I haven't done it. Do I understand the concept? Sure. And from a high level, you just need to make sure a couple of things. One, that your load balancer is accessible to, most of those agents, so those non-API servers, if you're going to use kube control to communicate with all those. And then the other thing is you're going to have to make sure that I think there's 2 ports you need open. I'm not going to rattle them off. I'll try, but I think it's 443 and 8443 or 6443. You'll have to make sure that port's open back to your API servers so that they can communicate. Well, so that you can kube control into those. Other than that, I'll have to think about it. I mean, I'm doing, I don't want to say hybrid cloud, but I am segmenting a couple of I'm segmenting my cluster into different networks, which will have almost the same side effect that you might be experiencing. Obviously, it's not going through the internet, but going through different VLANs and subnets. So when I get there, if I run into anything, I'll let you know. But maybe someone else has some experience with that. But most of the time, it's going to be just ports. Just make sure the ports that they're required to be open are open. Actually, Peanuts, +1 for RAM. Virtualization CPU can overbook easily. RAM is always scarce. Yes. Skull, in the process of buying a new house, do you prefer brands of patch panels, keystones, jacks, etc.? Do I prefer brands? No, I don't. I have to think about that. I don't really. To me, it's. I'm sure there are probably brands that are better than others. I think StarTech is a big one in this space. But I don't. No, I just kind of go with what I need at the time. And there are very few brands that I even recognize. It's hard for me to be brand loyal in this space because I don't buy it enough. Like you mentioned, you're getting a new house, and this is going to be a one-time purchase, and then maybe some additional things later on. So it's hard for me to be brand loyal on very specific things that I buy once in a while. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I bought StarTech stuff in the past. They make a lot of great stuff in this area. I would look for those, but I wouldn't be dead set on getting those if it wasn't in stock. Hopefully that answers your questions. I wing it every time I go to Amazon for those kinds of things. Just like how much, I do the mental game of pros and cons, price versus shipping versus what I actually get the value out of it. So. Actually, Peanuts, keep SQL close to your middleware front end because of network, move everything, nothing to the cloud. Yeah, it's true. I would say though that I would, keep your middleware. Front end, does it necessarily need to be? Could be. That one's tough, especially if you're doing, client side, like that only applies if you're doing server side rendering where you're hosting your front end because you know, you think of what's your front end on your mobile device right now? It's the app that's running, so you can't keep that in the cloud. You know, what's the front end? Where's the front end live on a client side React or Angular application or React application? It's actually on the browser of the PC or device that you're running right now. So that one's kind of hard. But if you do have a front end that's server-side rendering, like with React, yeah, you want to keep that close too. But if you have separation between, you know, back and front end, and you use client-side stuff, you know, that one's kind of tough because the client's going to be on the person's device that they're using right now. But yeah, for sure. Actually, Peanut Source, Cloud Architect here. All right, yeah, actually, Peanuts, all right. All kinds of people in here. I love it. I love the diversity. Sodabound, love the chat and discussion here. Running on a treadmill, LOL, need to keep going. Sodabound, keep going. You know, crank that up. Don't crank the speed up, crank the time up. Go longer, go for stamina. add a couple minutes to there, you know. Run past your goal. I don't know. I haven't ran on a treadmill in a while. I need to. But it was always a good feeling when you're getting close to the end of the run and you think you can do more. Well, do more, even if you can't. Come on, Sodabound, you got this. Yeah. Shivam, my company shifted. Oh, these arrows are hard to see. To virtual machines, and I hate coding on it. LOL. Yeah, I bet. So I know that. So I kind of understand what you're saying. So your company basically said no more writing code and cloning repos and doing all that stuff on your own machine. We're going to spin up virtual infrastructure for you to write our code on that virtual machine, and good luck. I bet that sucks. I'm not going to lie. I've been pretty fortunate to where every company I worked at is just like, yeah, we'll buy you a laptop, or you could use your own laptop, whatever. Write code on there, and we trust you. So I'm not saying they don't trust you, but you know, the architecture decisions sometimes suck, especially for coding, especially for debugging and coding. If you think of like when you're writing code, just think of it, and if you don't write code, think if you're writing an email through a virtual machine. You know, it works great on your own network, but when you're doing that with introduced latency, maybe to a different country, that kind of stinks. Yeah, so much latency. Yeah, what a yeah. I'm not criticizing their decisions, but man, what a I don't know, a performance killer, yeah. Anyways, I won't go on that. I could go on that all day. Sounds awful. I totally agree. Throwaway, love your detailed answer. Thanks. No, yeah, no problem. Hopefully it's not a lot of rambling. Sometimes I feel like I talk too high level, but I try to touch on all the things, but let me know if I need to go in more detail on some things too. What do you hate about virtual coding? For me, it'd be the latency. For sure. Actually, Peanuts, no one will do that. One cluster always in proximity. If the multi-cloud, just go with global load balancer. All right, in front of multiple case clustered HA for sure. Failover proximity of users. All right, I like it. Mr. JoeBot, anyone here tried Docker on the Apple M1 chip? I haven't yet. Does it support it? I thought that was one of the things that wasn't supported yet. Could be, should be. It would be in Docker's best interest to get that working. Sodabound, it lags if you do more than 2-3 instances of Visual Studio. Yeah. Grenade Proofman, I have Major JoeBat. I haven't had major issues specifically in the last week or two. It's been more error-free. Shivam, I'm kind of production support plus going I'm kind of a production support plus ongoing developing. All right. Duluth sucks. LOL. Yeah. I think Duluth is awesome. I think it's a fantastic place to visit. I do. And that's the entry point up into the Boundary Waters usually if you go through there on your way up. I love that area. It's so awesome. It just takes a while to get there, even in Minnesota. Mr. JoeBot, so it's emulating x86 on the containers. Okay, then nice, yeah. Sodabound, 0 here in MN, -22. Wind chill near Mankato. Hey, I know exactly where that is. You're south of me. All right. Yeah, it's pretty cold here, -2. Aeolus, actually, Peanuts, thanks for the tip. How exactly would I solve the storage problem then? I was hoping to use Longhorn to simplify the process. Oh, I could talk about Longhorn all day. Let me know. I used to live in MN. All right. It's 4 CPU and 16 gigs of RAM. Oh, I thought we were going for temperature there. No. Fargo, +1 for Duluth. All right. You're in Fargo. All right. Fargo's pretty awesome too. Never been there. Sir Lancelot. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Christian, got it right this time. Christian Senpai, PSA, Pluralsight is offering all courses for free this weekend for anyone interested. No CC required. I'm pretty sure too. Awesome. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Pluralsight. I've done a ton of Pluralsight in the past. It's really, if it wasn't, this is not an endorsement, but if it wasn't for them, I would be so lost when I started developing, especially doing C#. That's what I used to do every night and weekend when I wanted to learn C#. It was mostly self-taught, and work time was solve business problems. Nighttime was learn how to be a better developer. So I double timed it for many years. But yeah, I totally agree. Haven't been there in a while. I know a friend that creates content there. He seems to enjoy it. So yeah, I totally agree. A lot of should say there's a lot of learning, free learning out there too. So a lot of free courses. I'm a huge fan of video courses too, as you probably can tell. Let's see, Alice, that depends on the service. If you need a global RDBMS, go Spanner on GCP. All right, I'm a fan of GCP. I love Pluralsight, great platform. I totally agree. Are these cakes? All right, I'm going with birthday cake. Takano, oh no, just got my permit, practicing, gonna be able to go get my license. All right, I didn't have enough context. I thought you were maybe buying a used car, and I started rambling about getting inspection. Still, life tip, you should. Getting your permit. Dude, I hope you get it, man. Practice. Nice, thanks for the emoji tip. All right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Windows key plus period. You can get an emoji keyboard on Windows. It's great, and I think it's Command Option Space on Mac. I don't know why they use so many keys. Windows got it right with hold down the Windows key and hit period. Sodabound, same here. They started a free weekend yesterday, but just found out this morning. Nice. Marco, hi Tim. Hey, how's it going? All right, that's to Alias. I'm going on to the next one. PC Geek, if you want the Unicode version emoji, just put a slash before it. All right, yeah. Those look the same to me though, unless, those look the same to me because I think they get rendered. I don't know, could be wrong. In Discord anyways, yeah, because I think they fall back to the OS or the Unicode version. Let's see, Mr. Jobot, yep, no problems with Rosetta 2 so far, but most of mine are basic images running light loads. Haven't tinkered or ran any containers long term to know if Rosetta 2 can keep up. Nice. Grenade Proofman, also, not Docker specifically, but Homebrew just got upgraded to be native on M1 Max now. Oh, nice, yeah, Brew. I assume you mean, Homebrew. Yeah, the missing package utility, the missing package manager for Mac. Awesome, that's awesome. Don't have an M1 yet. Gonna take a look when the pros come out. I'm sure they'll be awesome. Mr. Jobot, I don't have my Mac, but they seem to be the laptop of choice for DevOps. All right, yeah, it's tough. ARM will never be massively adopted on servers, so having that emulation working for local development is crucial. Glad to hear it's working though. Might have to pick one up for an experiment. Yeah, Mr. Jobot, yeah, it's, I would say like software development as a whole, is super popular on the Mac. I mean, well, it's not why I bought my first one. That's why my first MacBook Pro was bought for me when a company I worked at, because it was a lot easier than it was on Windows, because you could use Unix-like commands. So it's basically, you get to do things like you can on Linux. And so I think the allure there was like, hey, a lot of my Unix commands will also work on a Mac. And so you kind of get two platforms for one. And then so Windows kind of got cut out of that deal, because they didn't have Unix-like commands that even worked. They had PowerShell, which was very early, and those commands aren't going to work. I mean, arguably some do. And this is why WSL came about, is because Windows was just like, hey, we want developers on our platform too. We used to be the developers platform, but and things change really fast. So you can still do a large portion of things you can do in WSL. I mean, I use Mac, Linux, Windows. I use it all. But I always, my lowest common denominator for terminal is Unix-like. So on Windows, I use WSL. Mac, I obviously can just use, Bash or Z Shell there, and same with Linux. But I will say, the ARM will never be massively adopted on servers. That's jury's still out on that one. We'll see. We'll check back in a year or two, but it might be. Who knows? If x86 platforms don't catch up in performance to heat to power ratio. Yeah, for sure. Actually, you guys are responding to a thread there. Alias, I have been able to set up a local cluster with Longhorn for storage successfully, so I thought I would be able to do the same with Oracle Cloud. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Oracle Cloud. I assume it's just like any other cloud. You should be able to, but sometimes when you set up those virtual machines, they need some additional dependencies. Yeah, tell me more. PC Geek, usually like $100 for a general vehicle check. Once over, a wife did it for a Hummer she was looking at. Turned out it was a piece of junk. Salesman said it had great, no problems. We walked on that one. Yeah, perfect example of why I say get an inspection. Because, it's for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. A test drive will only tell you what's going on inside and kind of, if you understand what's going on with the rest of the car, but nothing compared to whatever. 100-point inspection from a professional. Actually, penis. Oof, you dropped the O word. The use of camo case seems odd to me. I'm not following there. Mr. Jobot, Oracle Cloud. Oh, that's what it was. It's so weird. Yeah, I know the O word now. It's Oracle. Yeah, for sure. I was like, what's the O word? Oracle. Oh, yeah, I totally got it. Alias, I do agree that Kubernetes is better suited for more stateless apps. Yeah, it can be either way. Stateful or stateless. But yeah, it's totally more suited for stateless apps, for sure, 100%, because then you don't have to deal with storage at all. It spins up, gets its state from some other state machine like APIs or whatever, and then persists that somewhere, or maybe it doesn't persist anything at all. Making database calls and all of that is actually fantastic. Rather than writing it all to disk, just have your database write it all to disk. But yeah, Kubernetes works a lot better. Let's say this. I'll say this. It's a lot easier to use stateless workloads in Kubernetes. It's just, you don't have to think about storage at all. But I think that's where, I'm a fan of Longhorn. I use it. That's where I think Longhorn really helps out, because it's, you could spin up your containers anywhere and it should be able to attach those storage devices as long as it can communicate with them. And I think that's the problem you're having. Mr. Jobot, however, if you learn it, I'm sure there are some well-paid jobs out there. Taking advantage of the free tier while I can. All right. Senator, Daddy's home. Yeah, you better be good. Mr. Jobot, because you'd be one of the about 10 people that I know of. All right, you guys are talking about something that I'm not tracking now. Actually, penis, Minecraft on Kubernetes is pretty hard to get set up to keep it clustered for HA. Yeah, and so I think this is a good point to make, is that your containers also need to be able to support HA, and HA is probably overly used, but let's put it this way. Minecraft is a stateful application, and it needs to read and write from disk. And so if you throw two stateful applications in there that need to read and write from disk, you might have problems. And so that Minecraft container hasn't solved the concurrency problem. So I wouldn't say it's HA or not. I would just say that, like, you can't run, at least the container that I've seen, run multiple versions of that and keep the state in sync. And at least not under normal measures that I've seen. And so what I've seen for Kubernetes, for Minecraft, is you just scale vertically. Throw more resources at it, right? Instead of scaling horizontally, throw more containers at it. And maybe this has changed, but you'll have that problem with almost every service you can think of that hasn't solved parallelism or concurrency. Is that you can't have multiple stateful things running unless they know about each other, or unless there's a broker that manages the state for them. And so you'll see that with Plex. You'll see that with a lot of containers, because they just haven't been built or engineered that way. And so and then you even argue, why throw it in Kubernetes anyways? And that gets into a whole long discussion about, do you want health checks? Do you want all these other things that could run? Do you want to run it on multiple machines? Obviously not multiple containers at the same time, but do you want that node to spin up on, or do you want the container to spin up on any node? And so anyways, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like those services have had, they would need to have to figure that out before you can do it yourself. Maybe that's something you can figure out too, for sure. PC Greek, yeah, there we go, right there. It also doesn't make sense at all. I agree, it's single-threaded. Yep, because they both, yeah, they can't read and write to the same state, and if they do, you might have conflicts for sure. But that's just an example for all of the containers that you might try to run. I mean, the point of Kubernetes isn't always to scale horizontally. There are lots of other benefits you get from it, the ones I just mentioned. So, when you scale horizontally, you might think you're making it more available, but you might be causing more problems than you realize. And so maybe the benefit of Kubernetes is just making sure it's always up, right? And so that's one of the things you get from health checks. Let's see. But the main point is if it ever goes down because a machine goes down, I want to be automated to spin up another one. Yeah, absolutely. Kubernetes, for sure. With the same persistent storage. And that's where Longhorn, that's where any persistent storage is going to help you. So I'll go on this real quick because it seems to be a point of confusion. If you're using a persistent volume in Kubernetes and you're not doing local bind mounts, you will get that. That's part of mounting a persistent volume, and creating a persistent volume claim is to say, hey, storage class, give me a volume and let me attach to it. And that system that you have in place, there's a couple that I use, should be able to say, hey, I know who you are. This is the storage you should get, and here you go, attach to it. And then so you have it. And so that's where Longhorn helps out, because Longhorn, you spin up these nodes that live inside of Kubernetes, and they replicate that storage or all of those persistent volumes across all of those nodes. So when one container says, give me my claim, it says, here you go. Well, if that container goes down, another one comes up, it says, give me my claim, that storage class or Longhorn is going to know, like, hey, you're that same pod. Like, here's your storage you had before you died, even if you're another container spinning up somewhere else on some other node. And the same goes on the flip side with Longhorn. If one of those storage nodes goes down, it will, replicate that data to another node and then give you highly available storage within Kubernetes. There's also the NFS client provisioner too that I'm a huge fan of, which doesn't take Longhorn at all. It just basically gives you an NFS storage class that will do that same thing for your Kubernetes cluster. Super easy to spin up. It's like 2 commands. It's a Helm command, something else, and boom, you've turned your NFS share into a persistent volume storage class that you can do that same exact thing for. The crux of that is that one, now all of your nodes within your environment need to be able to communicate with that NFS server. You may or may not want that. And then 2, if your NFS server ever goes down, then every pod that had that storage attached will probably go into a reboot loop until it comes back up. Anyways, but those are 2 options that solve that. So it's not throw more containers at it. It's get a storage class that can handle those types of scenarios, and then you can go as far as you want with it. Let's see. Liquid Lego. Liquid. I'm going to go with Liquid Lego. Anyone else having problems with shutting down VMs? Yeah. So, yes, it depends. So you're asking, you keep getting an error, VM quit, power down, failed, got timeout, even though the VM is running fine, but I need to shut it down to change hardware settings. Yeah, I've run into this too before. So sometimes installing the agent for Proxmox can help with this. Other times, I haven't been able to solve it. Sometimes I have to go into, so I'll talk about, So there's things you can do to improve that. Hopefully that's either updating Proxmox, updating the virtual machine, or installing the QEMU guest agent. Those are 3 ways you can solve it from the outside, or from the inside of that virtual machine. And then how can you react to that? How can you force it to shut down if that does happen? Because I do this probably once a week. You just go in the monitor section in Proxmox, click on monitor. I don't know why it's called monitor, but it is. And you'll basically get commands that you can issue to that virtual machine, and I just type in quit. I would obviously try to shut down the machine multiple times first, and sometimes Ubuntu or whatever OS you're using will be hung saying, you know, shut down successful, power off state. But that's usually solved by installing the QEMU guest agent, because I don't know, something's hanging. Then after that, I just type in quit. And so I experience that every now and then, but it's painful. And it's painful when you try to reboot the whole Proxmox server and, you know, one's hung for 2 minutes and you're like, what the heck? It should have been up by now. Thank you, PC Geek. Actually, Peanuts, redeploy containers in the new HA VM migrate. Redeploy containers is the new HA VM migrate. Yeah. Redeploy. Yeah. A lot of, I mean, you know, a lot of people comment on my two Proxmox server solution, right? Why do you have two servers? That's not HA. Well, I get that, and it was never going for HA, but people ask why I do that all the time. Why do you have a cluster of two? And it's, you know, I try to make my services HA and not my servers HA. And I think you're kind of touching on that here a little bit, is that, you know, sometimes you might not need HA virtual machines. You need HA services, which then, you know, with my Kubernetes and K3S setup, so my Kubernetes cluster and my services, you know, I get that. I get that. And so, anyways, I see what you're going for there. Maybe. Alice, a simpler use case base case for me would be putting Bitwarden on K3S with persistent replicated storage. Would you have any advice on that front? Yeah, exactly what I just talked about. And so I'm a little bit behind in comments. Exactly what I just talked about a little bit ago. Take Bitwarden out of it. Let's say you're running a website and you have an index.html, right? And that index.html isn't in the container. It's actually on storage for whatever reason. We'll make it super simple. And you basically want to make sure that when Nginx comes up, that index.html comes from storage. And so that's where getting a persistent volume, a storage class that will provide persistent volumes to you is going to be your solve. That's going to be your answer. Because you're no longer bind mounting. You're no longer doing that. You're saying, hey, Kubernetes, give me storage. And then your storage class should say, yep, here you go. Oversimplifying it, but two options that I know about: NFS client provisioner. It's fantastic if you want an easy way to do it. And then there's Longhorn, which is, I think, also easy, but takes more infrastructure. So choose your poison. QEMU guest agent install. All right, I'm getting some of these answers right. Thank you, Built to Fire. Actually, Peanuts, yeah, make frequent backups of your Bitwarden DB and forget about HA. You can do that too if you want. LOL, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, no problem. I'm taking that. Thank you. Actually, Peanuts, if all you have is a hammer, Kate, every problem will look like a nail. Use for containers, actually, Peanuts. Lean further, you get where the technology makes sense soon. Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Like, you know, I know that you can now containerize whole entire operating systems. You know, I think this is what, the Rancher's doing something similar to it. I think Red Hat's doing something similar to it. And now they're like, yeah, put your whole virtual machine inside of a container. And I'm like I have to take a step back and think about that, you know. I think as you do it a little bit more, you'll start to know where this makes sense. And you'll start to learn where the pain points are. What's painful, you know? Is DNS inside of there painful? Not unless something goes wrong. But if something, you know, and it's a chain of dependencies too. Sometimes you need these services in place before you can spin up Kubernetes. And so it's like, okay, got to do a virtual machine, at least for now. Maybe I'll migrate into there later. But then you start to think like, okay, if I have some kind of catastrophic failure inside of Kubernetes, what services do I still need in the rest of my environment to run? You know, what's the base level stuff that I need to run? You know, DHCP, DNS, all those things. And so it's like, should those be inside of there? You know, sometimes you have to play the game. It's a can I versus should I? Can I? The answer is probably yes. Someone's figured out a way. Should I? It's going to be up to you. So let me know. Liquid, we're going with ones that are mentions because those are a lot easier. Sodabound, not easier to answer, just I know they're not destined for me. Sodabound, still learning about Twitch. Are you customizing Still learning about Twitch. Are you customizing your channel with JS or Python? JavaScript. Yeah, all the bots I write on all my YouTube stuff, it's actually open source. If you're interested in getting my Twitch bot, it's out there, it's open source. Just Google Techno Tim and I'm sure you'll find the GitLab repo. Yeah, it's all out there. It's all JavaScript. It's open source. You're free to take it and use it however you like. The rest of stuff you see are either Stream Elements or Streamlabs or something else. And some of it are themes from Nerd that I've then customized. So yeah, it's a combination of a lot of stuff. So yeah, but any of the programming stuff you see, like the bot saying stuff, is code I wrote. It's actually code that I wrote that's running in my own Kubernetes cluster here at home. And it's here in Twitch. So yeah, I live it. Actually, Peanuts, I'm using FreeSXI for home. Yeah, enough for me. Yeah, I did go down that route before, but they have a limitation, on how many CPUs you can have per virtual machine. So, if I have a 14 core or 24 core CPU or thread, I should say, I can only take advantage of 4 of those per VM. So that's kind of where I'm like, oh, I didn't go with the free one. Absolutely, it's a fantastic option. I'm not putting it down. Just doesn't fit well with me, and the hardware I have. PC Geek, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you guys are talking about the client. Oh man, lots of mentions. Going down here, Mr. Joebot. Nope, that's a Jap Bandcast. Mr. Joebot, if you have compromised pod, you want the hacker to be as limited as possible. Don't even let them run LS. Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, and that's a huge reason why I think a lot of containers now are switching over to not run as root. I mean, some do, a lot, and they shouldn't. And it's a challenge and a lot of work for those people to do. But yeah, I totally agree. Well, not prop pods, not even have a shell. Yeah, actually, Peanuts. Yeah. This is another exercise too about how you choose a container, how you build, how you choose an image. And how you build an image. What do you put in that image? A lot of people will just grab whatever. They'll just grab the Ubuntu base image and go on top of there. But then you're pulling in every single dependency that image was built with, also exposing yourself to any of those vulnerabilities that image was built with. So a lot of people then choose Alpine and then they build on top of that, which I think is a pretty good choice. It's very small, but then you kind of only add what you need to add to it, which I think is good. It might make it painful for debugging. And like you mentioned, but at the same time, it might make it, harder for hackers if they ever got into your pod to do anything because nothing's installed. They can run the code that's inside of there, but they can't run, anything else. I mean, if you go with, I think if you go with Alpine or something, you don't even have access to ifconfig or nslookup or anything like that, So yeah, those are also things to consider for sure. Scratch-based does a job though. Can be harder to transfer. Can be harder for more complex containers. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you. Jog. Just built my Proxmox home server, setting it up as a router web server, file server, and using Ansible. Is this the right place for tips for that? Yeah, sure. Yeah, those all things I've done. Let me grab a drink. Yeah, all things I've done. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We totally have a Discord server too, where there are a lot of people who know a lot more than me about this kind of stuff, but absolutely, for sure. Pulley. I'm just going in with Pulley. How about that? What would be the best way to have all computers, PS4, theater equipment in a separate room about 30 feet away, fiber optic cables for a projector? How would the signals be for controllers? Whoa, that's a lot of questions. That's a lot of questions. But I see what you're going at. So you're asking, how can I have computers, Xboxes, basically any kind of device attached to a monitor that's really far away? Yeah, and haven't had to do it. My first guess would be super long HDMI cables. I have no idea what the length is HDMI can transfer data over. I assume it's good enough for 30 feet. That would be my initial. So if I were doing it, I'd probably get long HDMI cables HDMI switchers and attach them. But yeah, that one's tough. But fiber optic cables for projector. I don't know. Do projectors support fiber optic now? I have no idea. I'd probably go HDMI because it's pretty standard for a lot of those things, especially for refresh rates and for screen sizes and resolutions. When you start to cross over to things like that, I'm not sure. How would the signals be for controllers? Yeah, I'm not sure. To be honest, like I said, if it was me personally, I go HDMI until I couldn't do HDMI. And so I wouldn't choose those options first unless there was something limiting, or if I knew some tech in the future was going to replace it, then I'd choose a different tech. But HDMI is super solid. Like, you know, it's what most people do for AV stuff, you know, and it keeps up. Wall and display port. Well, yeah, it depends on the refresh rate though. Yeah, there's a caveat there. So yeah, good call. Techno Tim, I'm a pen test by trade with a focus on DevSecOps. Yeah, I love these new roles that are popping up. Hit me up on Discord if you ever want a second opinion on anything security related. A lot of people get tips from you, and if you sprinkle in a bit of security in tutorials, maybe people will be security minded when developing, which can't be a bad thing. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's a good point. You know, I haven't touched on a lot of that stuff yet. Just because, you know, I try to do them as quickly as possible. Yeah, I probably ramble sometimes. But you know, yeah, sure. There are probably points where I can inject things about security. So I appreciate that. Thank you. HomeLab New, my new employer has made something like that too. Hey all, Savid. Hey, how's it going? Super Double A. How do y'all focus on learning stuff on your own? I'm getting distracted. I never commit to any one thing long enough to learn it. Yeah, great question. How do you focus on anything at all? Yeah, it depends. I've said this a few times, but most of the time I try to, think about what I want to learn, and then I think about like a tiny little project that I could do to actually do it, where I can implement that thing I want to learn. That's how I learn. One, I watch tons of YouTube videos on it. If they're tutorials, I'll follow them exactly, unless they're super old. And I know they're not relevant anymore. But I try to implement something, with what I want to learn. So it's not just, for me, it's not just reading. It's a lot of doing too, and a lot of experimenting, and a lot of doing the wrong thing, so that I learn the right thing. But how do you stay focused on that? I think, for me, doing or implementing part of the thing I want to learn, for me, helps, because that's what I'm focusing on. Usually it's writing code or doing some kind of infrastructure where it's pretty involved. I'm looking at the screen, I'm typing in the commands, I'm trying to make it work. And so for me, I can hyper focus on things like that are on a screen. Close YouTube, close all that stuff, and maybe turn on music real low, and go that way. But I would try to have some kind of objective. Say, what do I want to accomplish by learning this? Not like, not like flashcard learning. Can I rattle off the definitions for these things? But more about how can I implement these things and prove, that the thing that I learned is actually working. That's how I do it. When I want to learn, like I mentioned earlier, React, I create React app. I spun it up. I make some changes in code. I see the changes in real time. Then I think about, okay, let's build a little tiny website for myself. Could be kind of janky, most likely will, but that's not the point. It's, how can I, get a title, get buttons? How can I navigate around? How can I call an API from here, to get data, to put paint on the screen, those kinds of things. So I would, create your own project around the thing you want to learn and then go from there. Maybe that'll help. That's how I learn. Sodabound, thanks, Tim. Just wondering the real benefits of hosting your own apps and services and data on Azure versus on-prem. Yeah, it depends. I mean, yeah, it depends. I mean, it's going to be cheaper at home. I'll just say that flat out. It's going to be cheaper because it's almost, if you have the infrastructure already, it's just electricity and, maybe hardware failures. You factor all that in. But it's going to be cheaper at home. But you're exposing yourselves to risks if you're exposing those services too. And so you got to have measures in place to make sure that if something did happen to that environment, they can't get past that environment. So a lot of considerations. a lot of considerations. And I haven't had it figured out. I mean, I've been self-hosting for years, and I've gone back and forth. I've gone from cloud back home, kind of in the cloud, hybrid cloud. I've done things both places for my own stuff. And I'm not even talking about professionally. I'm talking about my own stuff. And there will be a time too where I have to go back to the cloud. Like if I ever move or something like that, or something happens to my infrastructure, I got to now shift all this stuff up to the cloud just because I have some services that I want to keep running. There is no easy answers. I mean, businesses are going through this all the time. The same question they're asking themselves. Is it all on-prem? Is it hybrid cloud, or is it all in the cloud? And I still don't think they figured it out. And once you get to the cloud, it can be expensive. I'm not going to lie, depending on what you're doing. And so sometimes on-prem, it's a lot easier to run things on-prem, a lot more cost-effective. But then you have a lot more maintenance and risk and things and uptime that you may or may not be able to guarantee, things that are out of your control. Your ISP, what kind of SLA do you have with them? And I know we're probably talking about home stuff, but if you're ever considering it for non-home, those are the things you have to consider too. But no one's figured it out yet. And it's going to be an evaluation on your own, case by case, for sure. Double A. Well, here we go. Home Lab New. Check out Thought Machine Deacon on GitLab for a Kubernetes security analysis tool. All right, I like it. There's also there's lots of tools in this area for sure. But I'll check it out for sure. Thank you. Draken. All right, Deacon. I'll go with Draken. Let's see. I'm skipping ones that aren't mentioned to me. They're mentioned to other people. Sodabound, React is great. It has a learning curve. I would recommend generally learning JavaScript, ES6 for starters. Most modern libraries are based on that. Sodabound, yes. I don't disagree with that. The only thing I would say is, just learning ES6 itself sometimes isn't as practical. And, so if you're going to do front end, I personally wouldn't just say okay, I'm going to learn about JavaScript and HTML and CSS individually, in the wild and learn about CSS and how I do that. And then learn about, ES6 and how I write ES6 and then learn about HTML. Because when you get into things like Angular, Vue, React, some of them are frameworks and some of them are Vue libraries. But at the end of the day, they have, a certain way or a style or even a framework for how you write this code. And so it's not the individual pieces sometimes that you need to learn, it's the whole solution. So I totally agree, but when I see sometimes people are like, I'm learning HTML and JavaScript, I'm just kind of like, well, what are you going to use? And I'm not saying it's not used anymore because it absolutely is. But I guess I'm a little more pragmatic where I'm like, okay, what are you going to build? A front end. Okay, what Vue library are you going to change? Or what Vue library are you going to choose? Or what framework are you going to use? And they might say React. And be like, okay, well, just start with React, and then learn about CSS and JavaScript and HTML as you learn React. Anyways, that's me and how I learned because I guess I'm pragmatic about it. About I want to create the thing and learn as I'm going. And then arguably, you don't even really learn a lot of plain old HTML. In either case, you learn about fragments and JSX and components, and you learn a little bit about HTML, but it's certainly changed. Not that you were saying that, I'm just calling that out. But thank you, yeah, for sure. C# devs. Does anyone know a good alternative without an agent on the target server having something like Ansible for Windows? Ooh. Does Ansible support Windows? I thought it did. I don't know. I could be right. Could be wrong, but I thought it did. I don't know if that means it requires an agent, but I figured if I were doing it, I have no idea. As long as Python's on the thing and it knows how to do the same thing in PowerShell, as long as PowerShell and Python are there, you would think that it would be able to do something similar. I could be wrong, but I thought Ansible supported Windows. New haircut. Kinda. Yeah, I've just been getting creative. Run Ansible on WSL. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So so good call. So that's on the client machine, but on the target running Windows, I think that was his question. It could be wrong. Mr. Jobot, the trouble as a pen tester is I don't get to install tools on clients' clusters. I have a way to find vulnerabilities the hard way. All right, yeah, I like it. A great one is using a pod to query the metadata service in the cloud deployments and grabbing the creds from the instance node. I like it. Yeah, I love it. I love learning about this stuff. Clever Princess, your hair looks great. Like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just getting creative every time. Who knows? Actually, Peanuts, man, I feel bad for hijacking so many questions, guys. No, I had no problem at all. Yeah, this is your time to ask questions and talk, because, like I say, like a lot of times you don't get the chance to talk to people that have similar interests. You can in Discord. I'm going to keep plugging that. But it's, you can have these conversations when I'm not live too, in Discord all the time, all day, all night. Mickey. Hello, just joined. Hey, how's it going? Home Lab New. Hello, this is great stream. Kubernetes, Zero Trust Networking, Security in the Cloud. Yeah, I love it. I love it because these streams just like they have a life of their own and they go where you guys want them to go. So I love it too. So I'm glad you do. I'm gonna follow you, Mr. Jobot in real life. All right. Yeah, Mickey, please do. I'm waiting for that down there. Hey, Noosis, I don't know if I missed this one 3 minutes ago, but Noosis, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. C Sharp. No, that's a mention. Zvid, just want to throw out a random question. What password manager do you use? If you answer that, and what are your options? What are your opinions on Bitwarden? Do you have any? Considering changing to Bitwarden. So I'm not going to tell you which one I use. Social engineering. No, anyways, there's a handful of ones you can use. I don't use Bitwarden. I'll just say that. And while I would love to, and while it seems like a great product, I didn't have the luxury of choosing my password manager, and I'll caveat that with, like most people, I work in an enterprise. Some of those enterprises uses password managers, and then, you might have a family who you use a password manager, and then you want to share passwords with them, right? And so those password managers help you do that securely. And then once you settle on that one, it's kind of hard to make that change to Bitwarden. And while I would love to, I'd have to convince lots of parties also to switch, which may or may not be hard. I think it would be harder for enterprise, right? It'd be hard for one person to dictate what password manager an enterprise uses. And so my choice lately has just been to stick with the one that other people have settled on. Not that it's not it's a fantastic option. It's just that, I don't want to run two password managers. And while Bitwarden seems super awesome, and if I get to have the do-over and dictate architecture to everyone, I'd be like, we're all using Bitwarden, sounds awesome. But I don't have that luxury. And so then my options are, do I use two password managers and split my passwords or duplicate my passwords in both places? Heck no, I'm not doing that. So anyways, if you have the option to change to it, it's a very popular opinion, and I think it just, because it's open source, because how they do their security audits is very transparent by, I think, a third party too. And and you have the option to self-host the database too, if you like. So anyways, popular option. I haven't been able to use it yet, just because I don't want multiple password managers. But there's a lot of people in here who have. Hey, C Sharp, learned a lot from Pluralsight too. Yeah, for sure. Mr. Jobot, I use KeyPass purely because it doesn't integrate into the browser, which can be an attack vector. The simple, the better password managers. Yeah, KeyPass has been doing it forever. Yeah, for sure. I used it for a long time. I loved it for sure. HomeLab New, nope. These are mentions. I'm going to skip mentions. HomeLab New, on iOS, for example, I always use the password manager integration, but I'm not handling creds on my clipboard. Yeah. And you'll notice on iOS, and I think this last major version, they started telling you when people copy from the clipboard, because there was a lot of magic that went into it before. Like, any app that launched could launch and copy from the clipboard without telling you. Now you see that notification, which I think is a good change. Can you stop it? I'm not sure if that's security control, but at least you know what's going on. Mr. Jobot, KeyPass only keeps the passwords in the clipboard for a few seconds. Yeah, it clears it afterwards. Yep. You can also set it to lock the DB after a timeout so that the master password isn't in RAM for too long. I like it. Yeah. Sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. Hey, Loud Luxury. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. How you doing? Let's see. Pros and cons, I guess. Citation needed on ARM, not on servers. Yeah, I agree. PC Geek, NordPass is another option I heard, but I haven't tried. Yeah, I hear about that too. Whoa, I'm trying to find one. Let's go. I'm going because there's a lot of mentions. Actually, Peanuts, yeah, you had been pretty good with redundant services, even further thought and explained than I was referring. All right, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I ramble, but hopefully you got what you needed from there. Yeah, Tim, your home lab is bigger stacked than some clients I had a few years ago. I wouldn't say it's that big. I've just, I've had fun exploring a lot of these topics. And then as I knew what I wanted when I started. And so a lot of you might not be in that situation. And, over time, I figured out what did work and what didn't work. And then I'll sprinkle in, what I wanted. And so I've done bare metal only. I've done virtual machines only. I've done Docker only. I've done container, orchestration frameworks that aren't Kubernetes. And so, in this current architecture that I have, I've done a lot of the other things. So I mixed in what I wanted, and that was, a highly available Kubernetes cluster. It's these are things I think you'll learn over time. And at the same time, it's what do I want to support? I won't lie. 2 weeks ago, I had a catastrophic failure on one of my volumes that were in Longhorn. I was like, I have no idea what to do, And those are the things that you can't really plan for. Fortunately, Longhorn made it pretty easy to figure out and how to restore that volume. But for an hour and a half, I had a super simple website that's my own, offline. 404 when people went there. That's not good. So those are the things that you might run into if you're running things that you don't fully understand. Like I did Longhorn. I was like, this is great. Like storage will never go down. Well, the volume can have fatal errors, and then you have a recovery process you need to do, which I had to figure out what the recovery process is. Super simple once you understand it, but not so simple when you're under pressure. But yeah. Mr. Joe Bot reading the source for the Twitch bot. Testing. All right. I like it. Gunny92. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for the sub. Thank you so much. Prime. 2 months. All right. Lights a flash and everything. Yeah. Mr. Joe Bot, block words doesn't trigger. Should. It should be cat and dog. I messed up in that video and I accidentally, yeah, you'll see the video. Maybe you will. Bono Kazooie. Bono Kazooie. What am I working on? Currently, I'm making small apps to show my algorithm skills. All right. I love it. Yeah. Let me know what the algorithm is or what problem you're trying to solve. Now on the live version, it's a little bit different than the open source one. Yeah, my Twitch one should be pretty full featured, but it's not the one that's in this channel. All of those, I basically wired up every Twitch event you could possibly get, at least from the IRC client, and they should work. If not, let me know or open a pull request or log an issue. Pedantic, yeah, close pedantic, LOL, yeah, for sure. ISO used HDMI over Cat6 on some home cinema installations with IR repeaters. It's not perfect, but allowed for some distance between the equipment. I like the ingenuity there. For sure. Learning process. Try, break, fix, break again, keep fixing. Heck yeah, for sure. I think part of learning is breaking and doing the wrong thing. It's I don't want to say easy, but it's if you always go the happy path, you might learn easier, but or faster. But going the unhappy path, sometimes you'll learn a lot more. I think, for me personally, when things don't work, and you have to fix them, that's where I think I start to learn about the way things work. But maybe that's just because I've been in IT and done support for a long time, and that's how I learn stuff. Sometimes you walk into stuff not knowing anything. Even in software development, when you support code that you've never even written or look at, you have to troubleshoot and debug, and it's broken, and so you got to kind of start from the ground up. But yeah, I totally agree with that. MW Carol, I'm going with Carol. Techno Tim, new here, but general question. I'm debating moving to Proxmox from FreeNAS. Any recommendations, tips? I think the only thing I really need to make sure is 100% right is importing my ZFS pools. Yeah, so any tips? So, I was fortunate enough to not have to do the migration. I built mine originally virtualized inside of Proxmox. So where do I even start? where would I start with that one? That one's tough. Any tips? I mean, fortunately, you can spin up your virtual machine ahead of time, right? At least the virtual machine. And you can pass through your HBA controller or whatever you're doing, maybe individual drives, but hopefully an HBA controller, right? You might not have two, so that might be kind of scary. But I don't think it's scary because I did, so I'll take this back. I did something similar. So I didn't move from physical to virtual. Yeah, why didn't I think of this? Oh. I moved from virtual to virtual. So when I built my 1U servers, I had a new FreeNAS machine that I was building, and then I was going to migrate my old FreeNAS, machine from it. The only thing I really had to do, one, I would, you can't do this, but I would back up that physical machine if you can. If not, export the config in your database, and then save that. Make sure that's safe. And then, I would probably at some point shut down the physical machine, take that HBA controller if you have one, you should, maybe, install that in your Proxmox host, make sure you can pass that thing through, make sure when you build your TrueNAS server, it can see that device. And then when it actually connects and sees your array, it should know that there's a ZFS pool already, and it should ask you to import it. And then I would restore my configuration. I wouldn't, the physical machine, I would kind of, that one's tough because you can't really keep it in place because you're probably going to take, I don't know how you're connecting these things. Leave most of that intact. So if something does go wrong, you can go back to it. But that's a tough one. Going, basically doing a P to V, a physical to virtual migration. I think as long as you have things backed up, like your database for TrueNAS, and you don't overwrite anything with your ZFS configuration, I think you'll be fine. Because TrueNAS is pretty smart when it sees a Z pool, a ZFS pool. It will ask you if you want to import it, and I've done that quite a few times, and it's always gone flawless. But I haven't done the physical to virtual because mine's always been virtual. Hopefully that helps. PC Geek, Proxmox isn't primarily for storage though. If you have a lot of shared storage, you could install Proxmox and then pass the disk through virtual to FreeNAS. Yeah, for sure. Moving Proxmox from FreeNAS, any recommendations? Maybe I missed this. New here, but general questions. I'm debating moving to Proxmox from FreeNAS. Any recommendations, tips? The only thing I really didn't make sure that 100% right is, importing your pool. So I guess I missed part of that. So you're going to import your pool that's already running on on Proxmox. Yeah. Good luck. I haven't had experience with it. It should be fine. But I would just proceed with caution and don't. Good luck. That's all I'm saying. Make sure you have that data that's in there also backed up somewhere else. I mean, because worst case scenario, you destroy your ZFS pool, something goes wrong, and you can restore that from backup. I know that's not always, something that people at home can do, just because, now you have to have another ZFS, or a pool or array of disks that's as big or as equally as big as the volume that you're using. Hopefully it's backed up. That's probably not the greatest advice, but let me know how it goes. If you need help, ping me in Discord. I'll try to help the most I can. I only do one share per pool. It's really just me asking. All right, that's seeming not as scary as I thought it was going to be. The storage would be better in FreeNAS. I would be very difficult setting up Proxmox for storing all CLI basically. Okay. Carol, I'm tired of FreeNAS being so out of date with everything. Would you recommend running Proxmox as the host and virtualizing FreeNAS to do the SMB shares? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all I use TrueNAS for anyways. So, I know that TrueNAS has lots of features. I know that they want to do virtualization. I know in scale they're going to do Docker, and I know that they're going to do KVM virtualization, and they're going to do Kubernetes and stuff like that. But for me personally, I just use, TrueNAS for only storage. So it's NFS, of course, ZFS. My pool is ZFS, and then storage services, NFS, SMB, and Minio or object storage. And so other than that, I don't use much for it. I mean, it's you know, great UI. It's a great service. It can manage all those things and can do a ton more. But you know, that's all I use it for. So maybe that plays into your sentiment of you're tired of it being so out of date with everything. But you know, that should change in TrueNAS scale because you know they're moving to Linux for sure. It's an alpha right now, yeah, for sure. Maybe Unraid as FreeNAS alternative depends. Yeah, it does depend. I mean, but again, we're going into an all-in-one system, and so you know, you know, if you want an all-in-one system, there are lots of things out there. Turning Proxmox into an all-in-one system, you know, that's kind of roll your own. But you know, things like TrueNAS, Unraid, those are kind of already all-in-one systems that have, you know, hypervisor, have containerization, have storage, have all these features that you're kind of talking about. And you know, Unraid is another option for that. To my knowledge, if I do Unraid it, if it had ZFS support, yeah, I don't believe it does either, because Unraid uses, I forget, different file system. Is it Butter? I don't remember. But it's not ZFS. But because they don't use ZFS, you can expand that pool a lot easier and grow your storage into JBOD. And so there are benefits. And I think there are reasons why they chose not to. Who knows? Maybe they'll switch to ZFS when ZFS starts supporting more of those consumer features that people want, right? JBOD, expand a pool without having to have the same exact size or replacing drives one by one until every pool every drive in the pool is, you know, the new size, and then expand. So yeah. For sure. Actually, Penis, well, do you actually need ZFS or is it just nice to have? Does it support Btrfs? Good enough. Oh, I don't know about the closed source. Carol, I don't need it, but I'm kind of stuck with it for now as I have 3 pools, 4x4 terabyte, 4x8 terabyte, and 4x10. And they're twofold to transfer around to any other format. Yeah, classic vendor lock-in, yeah. LastPass question mark? Yeah, that's a good option for sure. Loud Luxury, random question. Where do you guys get inspiration from products, for projects? Been wanting to learn Docker and Ansible, but have no motivation per se. Yeah, I think I kind of summarized this a little bit, Loud Luxury. So I'm just getting into a question. You know, when I learn, I said this earlier, so condensed version, I create a project for myself. So I don't say like, I want to learn Docker, let's install Docker and just run a bunch of Docker commands. I mean, that works for some people, it doesn't work for me. For me, it's like, hey, what do I want to run in Docker? Oh, I like Minecraft. Okay, let's run a Minecraft server. Okay, cool. Like, I think there's a Docker Minecraft server. Okay, well, let's spin it up in Docker. You know, and from that, I get to learn quite a few things. Chaos22, hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. Welcome, how you doing? So from that, I get to learn a few things. Not only do I get to install and configure and get Docker running, then I get to learn about how to bind map volumes. Then I get to learn about how to pass in environment variables. Then I get to learn about how to expose ports, you know, and then I get to learn about what happens when my Minecraft server is in a crash loop. And then I get to learn about, you know, how do I stop this container that's in a crash loop? And then I get to learn about how do I clean up all of this, you know, these Docker images that are taking up all the space on my hard drive. I don't want them anymore. I don't want a Minecraft server anymore. So, you know, that's what I go after. And so I start to think about something that I want, right? Maybe it's something I'm currently doing, or maybe it's something I want to do or will do. And then I apply technology to that, because then that's the carrot, you know, that's the reward for me at the end. It's like, hey, you know, used to run Minecraft in a VM, now it's in a Docker container. Yeah, do I keep it? Who knows? Who knows? But you know what? I learned, you know, Docker along the way. That's my source of motivation. So it's not the technology itself, it's the outcome. So maybe that's the pragmatic me of saying, you know, what, you know, and maybe that's a software developer me too, thinking about, you know, what value are you going to get out of it? Or, you know, what's the product, you know, what's the product or the final output that I'm going to get? And for me, it's that carrot at the end. And so this case is Minecraft. For you, it might not be Minecraft. You're probably like, no, do you run Plex? Do you run a bunch of other services that I probably have videos on? Maybe you'll find one there that you'd like to do, you know, and run something in Docker. Handbrake can run in Docker. There are so many things that can run in Docker that I'm sure there's an application out there for you that you can say, okay, that's cool. You know, I'd like to do that. I don't want to install this this app on my machine anymore. I run a container, so when I clean it up, it's totally gone. So anyways, hopefully that helps, because that's how I learn, for sure. Buno Kazooie. I can link the website showing my algorithm if it's okay to post links. You won't be able to hear. You won't be able to hear, but you're free to share in our Discord. We have a channel in our Discord totally dedicated to community projects. So if there's something that you're working on and you want to share with others, as long as it's not like, hey, some service you're selling, that's not what it's for. We have a channel totally dedicated to that, and you're more than welcome to share any open source project, closed source project, any kind of project that you're working on personally there, for sure. But yeah, exclamation Discord if you want the link. Actually, Peanuts, set up a clean Linux, install Docker via Ansible, and deploy your first container running a service that you want to use at home. Yeah, there you go. Actually, Peanuts, exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Grunny. FreeNAS to Proxmox. Use the HBA controller to pass it straight through, then let disk pass through with ease. Yeah, I 100% agree. Take it back up from the old FreeNAS. Do you install a fresh FreeNAS on Proxmox, restore the old backup? Should work straight away. Done it myself 2 to 3 times now. Gunny, thank you so much. That's exactly what I said, but yours was a lot more concise. Absolutely 100% agree. Thank you. Thank you for helping out there. Actually, Peanuts, well, you're providing the ideas. I didn't do anything else than put them in one sentence. Yeah, for sure. How Weston? Hey, how's it going? Hello. Rough week for me. I just testing Proxmox containers, CT, and it is awesome. But Nginx config with firewall is such a mess with everything. Is getting close on Docker Compose failure, but one issue after another. I had to learn a lot. Second topic, I had to migrate Microsoft SQL from my new company from localhost to a remote Docker hosted beauty. 5 days of crushing company docs and decouple a lot of processes that nobody uses. Hey man, you're fighting the good fight. You're fighting the good fight. Awesome. That sounds awesome. So you migrated. Well, 2 things. You've been struggling with Proxmox containers, so LXC containers, I think, and Nginx configs and firewalls. Does not sound fun. And the second one was migrating Microsoft SQL from localhost to a remote Docker hosted. Awesome. You're fighting the good fight, man. Congratulations. Hopefully everything works out okay. ISO. If I had to do a collab with if you had to do a collab with a YouTuber, who would be your first pick? ISO. Oh. It's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, there are so many great ones out there. I mean, none of them probably want to talk to me. I don't know. I won't, have some stuff coming. That's a tough one. I mean, you could think of all the ones that, I look up to or I enjoy. I mean, it's the same ones you guys are watching. If you looked at my browse history on YouTube, it would look exactly like yours. It'd be some Craft Computing, some, Tom Lawrence from Lawrence Systems. It'd be Snazzy Quinn. It would be, for me, the Harris Heller would be sprinkled in there. MKB, and then it'd, Linus. I mean, my whole entire list would look exactly like yours, minus 1 or 2 videos. I mean, I would love to talk to them anytime. I'm tiny. I mean, it wouldn't be worth their time, but I would love to. I just have an open conversation about stuff and tech and stuff. I would love to. I mean, Jeff, from Craft Computing, I talk to him on Twitter every now and then. I would love to have a longer conversation with him. Tom Lawrence, same thing there too. And then there are people that don't even have YouTube channels that are in tech that I would love to too. Hit me up. I don't know. So I don't know. There are so many people out there I would love to talk to, even just a 30-minute conversation, just to talk. I mean, I really enjoy. So I'll say this, like, I love origin stories from people that I don't know. Tell me about yourself. Tell me how you grew up, how you got involved in tech. Tell me about some of the opportunities you had that changed the course of your life. I like those kinds of questions. How do you solve technical problems? I mean, you see a lot of those from, in general, you get a lot of that in those videos. So I like the more personal side. So anyways, if I ever had an opportunity to talk to any of those are probably the kinds of questions I would ask. You know, because I like that. I like origin stories. You know, they don't do so well in Marvel, you know, Marvel movies, but I think they're good conversations to have because they give you a lot of perspective on just people and what kind of person they are. Anyways, I'm getting all weird and sentimental about, you know, hypotheticals if I ever talk to these people. But yeah, good question. And the first one, that's a tough one. Whoever would answer my, I wouldn't even say call. Whoever would answer my tweet or my Discord message if they accepted my friend request on Discord. Chaos, was just watching your server rack tour. Could you talk a bit about how disk array connects to your server? Curious how that works. Yeah. So a lot of people have been kind of talking about it here already. And so the general idea is that I have a virtual machine, right? So in my infrastructure, let me put a mint in real quick and get a drink because my throat is getting kind of dry. Give me 30 seconds. Oh, water. Okay, so how do I connect my disk array to my server? So we talked about this a little bit, but I'll answer it more directly. So I virtualized TrueNAS. TrueNAS is running inside of one of my virtual servers, right? That virtual server, that host, has an HBA controller, an LSI HBA controller. And then it has a special cable that goes and connects from the HBA controller into my disk array. So I have a NetApp disk array. It takes a cable that has a lot of F's and P's and 8s and 0s in it. I don't know. I have the exact cable linked in there. I can never remember the exact one. But then that connects to my disk array. And then my TrueNAS is then virtualized, and I pass that HBA controller through to that virtual machine. So it has direct access and exclusive access to that HBA controller. So then it can then see all of the disks attached to the array. And then from there, it's just like a physical install of TrueNAS. And it's no different. It's no different at that point. So it could be, you know, just think of it as, you know, if it was physical, I would do the same thing. If my server was only dedicated to TrueNAS, it would be the same thing, except for it's not virtualized and I didn't pass that through. But I think if you're watching that video, not to refer you to another one because I just answered the question, but I have a video dedicated on virtualizing TrueNAS, and that has the exact process and everything. It probably has a little bit more detail than what you're looking for, but I have it detailed in there. And I think in the first 60 seconds, you'll see like the hardware of how I had it set up. But yeah, those videos are bad. I'm sorry. I mean, people seem to enjoy them, but when I look back on them, I'm just like, oh, like, you know, that was very early YouTube days for me, which was like 1 year ago. Anyways, let's see. PC Geek, one single cable can connect to a disk array. Yeah. To an HBA SAS technology. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, for example, mine is an SFS 8088. Yeah, cable. That's what I'm saying. It has a lot of F's and a lot of 8s. I can't remember the exact one. Yeah, mine's very similar for sure. Let's see. Cathode. Just finished my first video and yours came here. Just finished my first. Oh, thank you, Cathode. Thanks so much for hopping in the stream. Wow, you just watched your first video and then hopped in here. So I thanks for making that giant leap over from YouTube to here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Phil, nice, welcome, Cathode. Adrian Goins, yeah, I know Adrian. Is it a 2-minute delay from where chat on the video? No, I just answer questions in the order they are. That's where the mouse is. So there's no delay. There's no delay. There's just a lot of things I need to get caught up on. Loud Luxury, I think I found my new fave channel. Oh, thank you, appreciate it. He goes through the whole chat or something. Yeah. Built to Fire, he's trying to, a bit behind. Yeah. Yes, he's following along with the comments. New chat is overlay. Today's video is showing as he is reading. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was based on everyone else. Water, agua. All right, I think I'm kind of caught up. Yeah, because water and agua, I just took that sip. Anyways, oh, sunset. Oh, wow, I'm out of breath. Ha Weston. UWSGI stands for Web Server Gateway Interface. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was, when I saw UW, I was like, it's firewall stuff in Linux. For Python web apps on Django, Flask, and more, it can be configured with Gunicorn. I'm gonna go with Gunicorn. or Nginx host stuff, but you have to be done in the correct way. Yeah, not familiar with it. Not familiar with it. Interesting though, for sure. Actually, Peanuts. All right, guys, dropping off. See you soon. Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for coming in. How Weston, about Microsoft SQL, they were using an app and SQL on the same machine, so performance and safety were questionable. Yeah, I agree. Putting everything all in one, yeah. And doing everything over localhost. Oh, so the app and the server were on the same. Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Same feeling when I look at my code. Yeah, I hear you. I get that way too. Cathode XT, if limited by budget, cores or RAM, older CPUs with DDR3 are cheaper. If limited by budget, cores or RAM, as older CPUs with DDR3 are cheaper. Yeah. It's funny. This question kind of came up a little bit earlier, but if I have to choose, so there's three things that contribute to performance in most things, servers, desktops, whatever. Do I choose more cores, so a better CPU, or do I choose more RAM, or do I choose? I'll throw in drives. And I would do an evaluation first and look at my workloads. Does any workload exceed? Say you have a workload that it's going to run at 3 gigahertz and you're buying CPUs that only do 2.2, you might want to lean towards CPU or that's clock speed and not cores. Generally though, I go towards RAM. I go towards RAM because it's incredible how little CPU a lot of services that you're going to run actually use. I mean, it's almost like on-demand compute. My example is always the web server. It's not busy until someone requests a web page, and it's got some work to do. But then 99% of the time, it's just there doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And so, your CPU helps out in that time where it needs to do some compute and it needs to do a little bit of heavy lifting. But hopefully your servers, aren't doing heavy lifting all day long. I mean, if you're doing tasks that, are dedicated towards that, absolutely it should be. But most of the time, your constraints are around RAM. So I always choose to go with more RAM. DDR3 is pretty cheap. I just went through a wave of buying a ton of DDR4. It's so expensive. And if you can get DDR3 cheap, I would highly recommend, maxing it out. And I wouldn't say go 192 gigs or whatever, in a Dell R710. If it comes with that, great. Should you max it out for the sake of maxing it out? I mean, if it's super cheap. If not, 64, 128, you name it, is pretty good. More than you would think. And once you start getting up into that much RAM, right? If you're starting to use whatever 96, 64 gigs of RAM, the next constraint you're going to run into is either going to be disk or CPU, because unless it's a workload that uses tons and tons of RAM, you're crunching a lot of data, or you're running, whatever databases that, cache all the requests, and it just grows until it can't grow anymore. You're going to run into your next constraint, which is most likely going to be disk or CPU. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough call. Yeah, I think you just kind of evaluate it. I lean towards more RAM. I do. I mean, I have 32 gigs of RAM in this PC that's running. Only recently do I need more, and I don't know. I'll end up building more, but my two 1U servers, I put 128 gigs in them right away. 2 weeks later, I put another 128 gigs in each, and each of mine have 256. Meanwhile, the CPU, it's 5-10% across, the whole entire thing. Sometimes it gets up to 15-20% across my whole entire, Proxmox node. But RAM's the one that will keep climbing, and there are memory leaks, there are all kinds of things, and so I don't want my disks to page ever. It's not always possible, but I want things in memory. So I would lean towards more RAM. It's a long answer to that, but I've had some time to think about it some more. Weston, what's wrong with AppNDB on the same machine? Yeah, I mean, built on Fire. Yeah, you're asking him, but. Is there anything wrong with it? Not necessarily. I do think you want to separate those things. You want to separate those things in general. You shouldn't have to. I mean, how do other services communicate with that database? I mean, maybe it's the only app that's communicating with that database, but most likely not. If you have a database in your environment, you might have 2 apps that need to communicate with it, or 2 or 3 things. you know, and then that's okay. Well, now you got to open up all those ports, and now you got all that, you know, incoming traffic to there. Even you, how do you create tables or run any query against it? Now you're, you know, querying against that database that's on a machine that's also running an app too. And so, you know, generally, I think you want to separate those concerns. For me, for sure. You know, I mean, personally, I wouldn't do it. I know that, you know, okay, now that you're not doing it over local host, you're introducing some latency because now it's over a network request. But there are ways around that too, you know, especially if you're doing Docker stuff. But I don't know. I separate those for sure. I read that one. Cypher. What's happening, Tim? Hey, not a whole lot. Built a fire. Go DDR4 systems. I totally agree. It's expensive, but you know, getting on a newer platform that supports DDR4, while expensive, will have some more longevity, and that system in general, high level, will use a lot less power because it's a newer platform. That's what I learned. Already bought one, an ancient one. Got a 2697 V2 64 watt ECC for $250. Nice. Cypher. Well, for security, having a dedicated DB might be better to have her separate from the app. So if any issue comes up, you won't have your whole stack compromised. Yeah, good point too. And it's less you have to expose. You know, you have to expose one thing for the app and then one thing for the database, and then what are all the developers that need to connect? And yeah, it's it gets messy. It can be done. But you know, it just gets messy. Cathode. I don't know. What to think though? Geez, Arrow. Spec says 768 gigs, and a Supermicro says 512 is supported. Yeah, that's a ton of RAM. I mean, I think most people would be pretty good with 128. You know, and that's even being pretty generous. It depends. Just one of those better practices, I think. Yeah, I agree too. Photogrammetry. I assume to use lots of RAM. Yeah. Johnny Quest. Anyone else having problems with the Docker after updating to Proxmox 632 to 633? All of my LXC, the Docker service is down. Setting up the new LXC also doesn't work. Oh, that's tough. So you're running Docker inside of an LXC and you're having problems after the update. Oh man, that's tough. Cypher. So I'm not. I'll answer your question directly. I'm not. I don't run LXCs, but I think PC Geek has done a ton with it too. Cypher, more RAM equals all of the tabs. Yeah, for sure. More Chrome tabs, for sure. Firefox or Chromium, or Firefox or Chrome. Yeah, they both use a lot of RAM. Yeah, they're both decent browsers. How Weston, if you go and scale the app, it will be a nightmare to keep those DB in sync for impossible. Separation also, yeah, DevOps. Yeah, I totally agree. And, separation of not only concerns, but patching. They both have different patching requirements. And I know that this one's probably an extreme edge case too, but could you run into incompatibilities? The app has a specific OS requirement versus the database. And then what happens during patching? I mean, obviously, if you only have one database, if it's one-to-one, you'll have this problem anyways. But if it's one-to-many, many apps to one database, if you had to service that one app and now you got to reboot the machine because that app needs to be serviced or whatever, now you just took the database down too. And if it's one-to-one, you probably don't have that case. But, lots of considerations. I always separate that stuff. There's nothing else that runs on my database servers than a database. And even those are containerized. So I totally even separated the concern of even installing the database on the machine. It runs in a container. But yeah, LXC is tricky at best from my own experience. Yeah, I totally agree. Did I miss this one? Nope. And then how was your eyesight? Story. Those glasses look pretty strong. My eyesight's okay. I got a big red mark. I mean, mine's okay. Have I had glasses my whole entire life? No, I haven't. I don't remember what the prescription is. Like I can see it there. But I have problems. So I have a problem focusing on things when I have to look at things that are different distances. I don't even know if this is a legit thing. Anyways, tons of eye strain if I have to change the distance of the thing that I'm looking at. Arguably right now, if I'm staring at the screen, only the screen, I probably don't need glasses because I can focus pretty good. But it's when I do anything else, when I look at the screen and then something over there and then something over there, my eyes get so tired. Anyways, but thanks. They look classy. As all get up. Oh, thank you, Cypher. Also, Slick Trim, Tim. I guess it's been a bit since we've been on Twitch. Head down on work lately. Having fun with API and Jest. Yeah, jesting. All right. I'm a huge fan of Jest for Jest test. Yeah. There's, I don't know. I'm a huge fan. Yep. I love Jest. Testing with Jest is a delight. I never thought that unit testing could be fun until I started writing Jest. I mean, I had some fun with Mocha and stuff like that, but it just makes it super easy, especially for React. It's super fun. Testing is like a game for me of whack-a-mole. When I write tests for codes, it's like, okay, I have this code that can do this, should perform this thing. Now let's break it and make it do something else. So I totally enjoy it. Michael, hey, Micah Leo, thank you for the follow, appreciate it, welcome. Cathode, interesting, also nice, starting soon scene. I don't think I've ever seen any use blur, looks neat. Oh, appreciate it, thank you. I appreciate it, yeah. A lot of time and a lot of learning over time. I've been on Twitch and I kind of changed what I used to do on Twitch. I probably find old stuff I used to do on Twitch. Yeah, I had to change and rebrand a ton of stuff. So anyways, yeah, part of the new me. Anyways, hey guys, it's a little bit later than I thought. Man, what a lot of great conversations today. Man, thank you guys so much for the follows, for the chat, for the subs, for the bits. But yeah, most of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for asking questions. I say this a lot too, that this kind of open format and AMA about tech in general exercises my brain in a different way. So I really appreciate it. I got to think on my toes, and I got to pay up. I always say in my videos, hop in my stream and ask me any questions that you have about anything in tech, more specifically about those videos. But I just need to pay up. That's my debt to you. If I say it, I'm going to do it. So I appreciate it. If you have any additional questions, you can absolutely join the Discord. Thank you so much for posting the Discord links. I really appreciate it. Hop in Discord. We have a whole Discord community full of people who are way smarter than me, that do a lot of different things, that have many perspectives from all different walks of life. And you'll get help on many, many, many different topics. And it's not all tech, but a lot of tech there. And so if you like some of the conversation you're seeing in here, feel free to move it over to Discord. This is me moving chat here over to Discord because my Discord window is right here. So anyways, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will see you guys on Tuesday. Have a fantastic night. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. And as always, be good to each other. Take care.